hangout? Which one is Lagos Igbo hangout? And I said this as an expansionist undertone. It's an expansionist narrative. And so many people came at me, oh, it's not that deep. You're a bigot. You're a tribalistic person. You're taking it too much. Some people agreed with me, at least with the likes. You could see a large chunk of people agreed with me and all that. And so I'm saying, and later on, I muted the tweets because when I get busy, I don't like to get carried away with Twitter. So I muted the tweet and went on with my life. So when I got less busy back, I went to unmute it. The people that were cursing, I cursed them back. The people that were trying to engage intellectually, we had that discussion. So I said, Lagos Igbo, you are saying it doesn't mean Igbo comes from Lagos. Yes, I agree with you, no fight. But can you differentiate between Delta Igbo for me and Lagos Igbo for me? A lot of them now decided being politically correct. Plenty English, they are not making sense. So I said, we need to start telling ourselves the truth. And I blame the leaders in the Southwest. I don't like to say Southwest. I like to say Yoruba land. I blame the leaders in Yoruba land. What if I Bagbakuba? So Onile or Alejo Shebi Onile? Yes, that's the word. The visitors are now behaving like the real landowners. And when you look at what is happening, that is what is happening in Benue. The Fulani herdsmen are now thinking they are the real landowners. The minority is trying to say we can dictate how everybody move on this land and all that. So we need to allow people to know their place. Most of our people are so naive. They've been brainwashed. They've allowed Christianity and Islam and so many other things to brainwash them. They think everything is about one nation under one God. So if you talk about something, they see you to be tribalistic and all that. So this is why I appreciate what you do. This is why I've taken it upon myself to always attend I see it as a class. So I always attend your classes Monday to Friday. Even when, because I work on night shifts, sometimes I get back from work, I'm trying to sleep, but I sleep early so I can listen to you. That shows how I'm trying to pay attention to you. And then I appreciate you, Busui. And I pray. Olodumare, I'm a finish.
Amen.
So thank you very much.
Amen. Thank you very much, my brother. That was much appreciated. I mean, because of the old stuff we have this morning, I was going to get into what happened in Benue. I mean, there's a lot of, to be honest, I'm still trying to understand it because I thought I did. I thought it was so simple, but then, I mean, just like you, my heart goes out to the people, and I hope that they're able to, resolve that stuff.
Yeah, not to call.
Oh, sorry, I was already planning to mute you because I was the background noise. But yeah, you can take. So are you done?
No, I saw a tweet and someone like made a screenshot of that issue from the year 2000. Like he made like a screenshot, newspapers, this thing to articles and everything on that issue. I even heard there was a time that I think Obasanjo stepped in. So it's so complicated, but I would dissect it and also understand it better. And I think some people are also trying to like dig deep and see what's all about. But it's very, very
all right.
deep.
Thank you.
Very deep.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I need to respond to somebody now. All right, so there's someone in the room saying the same way there is Awori Lagos, Ijebu Lagos, so is Igbo Lagos. It's not that deep, sir. We are one. We are not one. We are not one. We are not one. We are not one like that. And there's no Awori. Oh, one second, please. 1 second. There is no Awori Lagos. But what's wrong with you people? Are you lost? I've never heard of Hausa Lagos. Are you lost?
What is on?
I've never heard of Hausa Lagos. I've not heard of TV Lagos. Like you just move around like you have no brains. What's wrong with you people? Like you just move around like you have no brains. I wasn't going to talk about it until this nonsense I saw in the comment section. You are comparing yourself with Ijebu people who are indigenous to this space. Then the Ijebus indigenous to Lagos, then Ekpe, then Ikorodu, they are in Lagos State. There's a worry on the mainland, on the island, in Lagos State. You did not get into that place until 1930. And you are comparing yourself with them and say because you have Ijebu, Awori Lagos, there's also Igbo Lagos. Are you insane? And this is the crazy part. The crazy part is that this is the. Let me tell you why I sound this alarm. What you guys are saying will earn you what the exact same thing that you hand your parents. That's why I'm afraid for you. I am afraid for you people. What 1960 is more than 50 years. Keep saying it. What happened to your parents will definitely happen to you because you have not learned nothing from history. And these are people who will be shouting Odiani all over the place, telling you about how important land is. And you go to another person's land and say, I've been there for 50 years. Who cares how many years you've been there? If you can count it, it means you're not indigenous to that space. This, guys, do you know how painful this is? Do you know what's paining me? It's not Lagos issue. It's how, one second, I have to mute you, please. It's the kind of iyatoma fi jẹ àwọn èèyàn kan ní Nigeria. Ìyà yẹn máa pọ̀. Wọ́n bá wọn sun ẹkún wọn ní rí ẹkún wọn ní rí omi ẹkún sun. Did you know what happened in the north? Did you know what happened in Port Harcourt? Are you guys dumb? Do you want to repeat this thing? Do you want to die? Have you not learned anything from history? I'm afraid for you guys. And I've said it several times. There's something about Yoruba people. It's called we are a peace-preferring people. If you if you go beyond your limit, you will collect. That one that you saw happen in the election, all of you are crying. That is nothing. Your parent, your forebears literally died for being stupid like you like this, and you are still stupid. Say off is saying. But guess what? Don't change. Continue. Say collect what? I think fact of the matter. I think maybe you think I don't look like your dad because your dad must be dumb, and we're not dumb in my family. So that question you're asking, ask your dad. He will answer you. But at this point, let me mute you. Go and meet your daddy. I'm not your daddy. I'm not your daddy. I'm not your daddy. Yeah, Yoruba, please go on.
Yeah, sure. Busui, thank you for all that you're doing, honestly. And I see you've graduated into X Space. Because I saw you on X Space first before I came back onto TikTok. I'm of the opinion that can you hear me, Busui? Can you hear me?
Yes. 1 second, please. But please continue, please.
Okay. It seems to me that those that are exhibiting these behaviors are the remnants of those that were inside those two wars. Because if you do the calculation, they've come out to with a vengeance. Hello?
Please continue. I'm trying to sort out the other device. Please continue. Please continue. I'm trying to sort out the other device. Please continue.
Okay, all right. So I think it's the remnants, those that let them continue.
Thank you very much for that. And I apologize for the breaks and all that. Again, trying to just technical issues, to be honest, but it's gonna get better. I'll be back on camera. Vicky, would you like to say something? Take your minute, please, and then I'll be back. Let's try and talk something.
All right. So you said I should say something, right?
Yes, for 1 minute. 1 minute, please.
Okay. So another thing that caught my attention is the fact that this hangouts and the name. I don't have a problem with hangouts. People hang out everywhere, and people do meet and greet. It's fine, but I have a problem with the name. And there's something trending now with the hangouts. And someone made a tweet and says, Yoruba people outside the hangout, they were lining up, waiting to be fed leftovers. And there was one Yoruba boy, his name is President Eniola Daniel on Twitter. He attended the event. He came out, was very angry from the post, from the tone of his post. And he said, some of us, a lot of Yoruba people attended that space. We bought expensive clothes so that we can show that there is unity in Nigeria. So, and now you come out and make this post and you're trying to mock us. And then the initial person that is trying to mock Yoruba people with the leftovers and this thing now came and said, I don't care about your feelings. I don't care if you attend the post. Then I went through the comment section of the Yoruba guy that attended the post. I never saw one of his friends that he made a snap or a video with come to correct that person and say, stop this thing that you are doing. None of them under his own post though came to correct the guy. And you trust our people now. They now gave to that guy that see your life. Because of food, you went to a place you were not invited. Now they've come back to mock you. You are crying. I just said something to the guy. I said, Victor Banjo and Adewale Ademoyega will be proud of you at the end of the day. And this is just sound a lesson to everybody. A lot of them are always trying to pull you down. Your heart is open towards them. You don't have hatred in your heart. But when you hear what they are saying about you and your people, and I quote, Yoruba people are betrayers. Who did we betray? To your long? Did we sign an agreement and say we would go to war with you? Yoruba people ask, how did we betray you? To your long? After the war, our parents opened their arms, right? And they accepted everybody back. So how did we betray you? And I told somebody under that my post that is causing controversy, which is not a controversy anyway, I said, you should be grateful for the creation of Nigeria. The creation of Nigeria is a blessing in disguise to you people. Lagos, Yoruba land has been surviving for so long. The creation of Nigeria brought you guys out of the jungle to come and mix with human beings. So you should be grateful for the creation of Nigeria, not you now coming to mock us on our land. You should every day be praying for the British that created one Nigeria. And that is just the honest truth. But I hope the ones that are sensible among them would learn. And those ones that didn't learn, like the ones that killed the northern leaders and the elites in the north, and they were mocking the northern leaders that we've shown, we've taught the north a lesson. I hope they learn from history and not come and repeat the same.
Thank you very much. Concerned is I hope that this will drive them to study and to also get to a point of evolution, because this is definitely stagnation. You can't repeat the mistakes of the past generation again and again and again and think that you have evolved as a human being. You are retrogressing. All right. I'm going to take everybody down now. We're going to get into the conversation for today. So thank you very much for being here, Yoruba Nation, and thank you very much for Vicky. I really appreciate your presence. All right. So, say I have sympathy for them. Of course, they are human beings. I don't do this because I hate a group. I do this because I love my own. And in loving my own, if you love your own, love is not a switch that you just put off. He came back. He said, Ugbo's not getting our time, we're not too small. Says the person who doesn't even know his own size. Your brain is leaking. What if I wrote now? Where was I? Let me check my notes. You guys were born with lies. You are just not happy with the truth, but I can't help you. No, I'm not here. Roger, you don't know why I'm here. I know exactly why I'm here. Don't worry about you thinking why I'm here. I'm here to do what I'm doing. I'm here for Yoruba people, but I'm also here to remind the Igbos who they are and what has happened in their history and how they're on the precipice of experiencing something worse. Not because I want it to happen, but because there's no way a human being will move like this and not get it. But when they get it, it's this victimhood, they're queen automatically, which is why, listen, there are people that have been conquered in this world. Let me give you an example. Britain was conquered by Rome, colonized for about 400 years. This Britain were always shouting, they were colonized at one point. But after a while, they threw off the weight and then began to also, open the world. Sorry, let me just mute this, Ikemba. You are using the name of a person that you should be ashamed of. You should be ashamed. Your parents should be ashamed of you. You know what? So I don't even have the time. I don't have time for retards. And I'm not doing this primarily for, of course, why am I doing primarily for Igbos? You're not worth that much. It's just that if by any chance you hear me, this should probably help you to also understand what has happened in the past. You know what? Let's get into the topic. I'm not going to discuss the news today. Normally we spend some time to talk about the news, but because of the old technical stuff we've been having since we started, we're just going to go straight into the topic. We started the session last Friday, AWO and Biafra. So if you don't send any requests now, I'm not bringing anybody up until much later. Please, thank you for understanding. Let's try and concentrate on this session. I'm talking about AWO and Biafra, and one thing that's been going on for a while now is an intentional desecration of Awolowo's legacy. And I mean, if you've heard me more than once, Mr. Bolton, Ẹkáàbọ, if you've listened to me more than once, you know I'm very passionate about Papa. And one of the reasons, of course, is that my voice is echoing. If you're just joining, just chill. Don't worry about my voice. It's not echoing, trust me. One of the reasons is this. If people want to destroy you, all they have to do is to change your story, especially making it fit whatever it is that they consider to be true, even when it's a lie. There's something I read earlier, and we're not this many, but I want to read it one more time because I think I saw it in the middle of the night. I was reading some books. I was just reading. I like reading, but in the middle of that, I found something. I was like, what? And I said, the reason a lot of these clowns come here to insult me is because of how their parents got the information that they call history. And I'll also repeat some of the things I said earlier about why it's important. This is something that we did in the 11th century. They did it in 1967. This idea that we're even... Ojo Torol, Doko Elepo Madie. Oh, Mayowa, thank you. You joined the Twitter space. It's not sounding like... Oh. It's supposed to sound like... Twitter people, please, do me a favor. Please come on YouTube. I'm going to share the link. Oh, please, Mayowa, please let me share the YouTube link there, please. Please. Because this thing is not... Oh. There's a mic I'm supposed to use, it's not working. So please on TikTok, on Twitter, so that we can have a very good session and I won't be distracted. Please kindly check Busui Oris on YouTube. Busui Oris on YouTube. And you have fun, you have a great time, okay, and then I'll be able to concentrate. Whatever is happening right now, because there's a mic that we got over the weekend that's supposed to help us with Twitter, but that mic is not working at this moment. I don't know why, and I want you to also enjoy it. So we'll make it better tomorrow, I promise. And then if we can't make it better, then we'll just stick to YouTube. It sounds good, really. Please do me a favor. Just listen. Gosh. I know some of you, this is not what you bargained for. I apologize, right? I do apologize, but just give me, let me listen on another device. If to badara ma kon end then ma pare ma bere mi lola. Umbo. Because but not bad, no. It's clear. It's not bad. Please, if you're on Twitter and you can hear me, please just say hi in the comment section. I want to be if it's clear enough, and if you could hear people talking on TikTok earlier, because people were also speaking on TikTok. It sounds hollow. Okay, it sounds hollow. What's your topic today? No, it's about when your life will be better. I care so much about you. Guys, just a second. Let me try and see if we can fix something here. If not, then we'll have to focus on what we have here so I don't get distracted. Because today's session, there are too many books. I don't want to mess it up. So please just give me a moment. Guys, I know what the problem is. It's the device. Like I said, it belongs to one of my Oga. It's the one for my. I'm using one of my kids' device to stream that thing, and that device is not connecting with the mic, so it's not the mic's issue. It's the device. The mic is perfect. The device just can't work with it. So I hope you can hear me on Twitter. I'm trying to do everything I can, but I hope it works. But let's do it this way, yeah, so that please just, if you can, right, please go on YouTube, right, so you can just have a great time, and then we won't have to have distractions. I don't want you to miss anything. So if you can't hear properly or it's sounding hollow, please just let me know. We can always end it, and then whenever we get the device for this, I like to get different devices for different stuff because it makes it easier that way. I thought I could run it with this one, but apparently it ain't working. All right. I have been flagged for hate speech. People of God, repeated violation could result in your life being discontinued. Please, we have to power tap. They are reporting this video on YouTube, on TikTok. Your life contains themes that some may find uncomfortable and has been restricted. Reason, hate speech, and hateful behaviors. Can you hear me? Wow. You can hear me? Well, I was just restricted. That's the funny thing. Me, I'm always trying to act like so what makes it even better? This old gentle kidney, I think it's just better to let people know that they are goods. Because my fighter is not working. Maybe what they want is that one. I'll tell them that they are goats, because for the most part, many of these people are goats. And I'm not sorry. I didn't say all, though. I didn't even say most, but many. But please, let's power tap. We're going today's session. Listen, this week's session, people will learn, and those who want to cry will cry. I can't help them, but I hope we all learn. And anybody that doesn't want to learn, call my baton all. Call my quatunri. All right, so let's get into it. I hope you can hear me well on Twitter, but we're going to have a great time. Let's get into the conversation. All right, so on Friday, we started a new series, Awolowo and Biafra. And the reason for that, essentially, is because there have been so many lies about Papa. And I've also said that if you've heard me or if you've listened to me before, you would have noticed that I'm very passionate about Awolowo, very passionate about him, about his legacy. And one of the reasons, of course, is because if a person wants to, if you want to destroy a person, attack their history and attack their heroes, right? Once you do that again and again, you're going to get what you want. You're going to, and also attack the possibilities of what they can do, their capacity to create something new. And it's not a new thing, by the way. The more you read, sorry, please, do we have any moderator here? Charles, I don't really care what you think. Go and say that to your parents, I beg. Push it down. Where was I? What people really do is that they attack your history, attack your heroes, and then also talk down on you and on your capacity to build something in the present, which of course ultimately will affect your future. And it's not new. It's what has happened in history. It's what has happened in the past. For instance, if you read the book by Papa himself, this autobiography, AWO, the autobiography of Chief Awolowo, he mentioned there what Zeke was really, really up to. And it says something that by 1940, I mean, he had known Zeke since 1934. Zeke and, joined the rest of the group after he returned from Ghana in 1937 when they formed NYM. Zeke was in there. And Zeke also started his newspaper called West African Pilot in that same year of 37. From 1937 to 1940, Papa said it became very clear to him that, Zeke's goal really was to elevate his own people, but to corrode, this were his words, to corrode the self-respect of Yoruba. This is what people do by saying things about your people, by, saying all kinds of things, and which is what you still hear today, to corrode your self-respect. Oh, you're a tribalist. Oh, you're a bigot. Oh, you're a traitor. Oh, you're a coward. Now, the person who is saying this nonsense, treachery is kind of natural to certain people in Nigeria. They're the ones who now call people traitors. The idea of cowardice is natural to certain people in Nigeria. They call other people cowards, but in their own history, you have no examples of heroes. So you can already tell what's happening. So essentially, you're trying to make a person feel like you, or you're trying to make a person into your own image so that you can feel comfortable about where you are. You're not even aspirational enough to want to become like them. Right? And so the thing is that if you know in your history there are certain things you lack, it's natural that everybody learns something. We all grow. But you don't have a right to attack people's story, attack people's lives, attack people's heroes, especially when you have nothing where you're coming from that even comes close to what you're fighting. One. Number two, if a person or if your people allow AWO to be denigrated the way they've been doing, what then happens is that you have nobody to look to. And I'll say this without fear or favor. In the history of the continent of Africa, there is no politician in the last 100 years that can lace the shoes of Papa. No politician in the last 100 years, in the last 200 years, I dare say, that can lace the shoes of Awolowo. What does that mean? So we'll be shouting AWO. No. So that we have somebody we can learn from. The same way Chinese go around Confucianism is the same way you can go around Awoism. There is something in there. There's something in his philosophy, in his ideology that can change not just Yoruba people, to be clear, change the entire Africa. One day we're going to do a session on his book, Problems of Africa. Some of these things he delivered in Ghana. This book, I don't know if you've seen this book before, but we're going to have a session on this book very soon. Just to see the kind of person, the breadth of his wisdom, and just see how powerful he is even today with the stuff that he left for us. And this is the reason I speak a lot, and also to just go against the lies. And I've said several times that these lies that you hear on social media, it's not just on social media. It's something that was kickstarted by their intelligentsia. It's not the average Joe on the street or the average Jane twerking on TikTok that is doing all of these things. It's what their parents said, and they said it again and again. The kids just took it now and brought it on social media. And so I'm not saying all Igbo people believe this thing, but I'm saying the majority, the vast majority that have access to anything called literacy, believe this ridiculous nonsense. And I'll tell you what they believe. They believe that somehow Yoruba people owe them something, and in a way, they were betrayed by us or by Papa. And the truth is, when you look through history, there's no single point where there's any form of betrayal from our side towards any other people. Especially, by the way, to even compare Yoruba to these people, sometimes, since I won't even lie, it's not sometimes, it was sinning. It was sinning because there's no basis of comparison. And guys, I'm angry. I'm angry because I saw some nonsense in the comment section earlier. So if you see me throwing darts, just take calm. If you're able, I love you with the love of the Lord, but I'm coming. If I have to say anything, I'll still filter it. I know if you'll be like these stupid people in the comment section. So I'll try and filter it as much as possible, but we'll hear the truth today. Starting with this. The book, There Was a Country by Chinua Achebe, is a compendium of lies spiced up with truth. The dish itself is a lie. The spice is true. It's truth. The problem is that we're not eating the spice, we're eating the dish. And that's why I tell people, it's not like there's no truth in it. There's truth in there, but you've got to be able to look out for it and not assume that you're reading something. And what am I saying? It was one of the things he said in that book is something that they said during the war, which was the fact that Papa had promised that whenever, let me even tell you how Achebe wrote it in his book. He said, it's been said that Awolowo declared that if the East seceded, the West would also do the same. In other words, it's been said. Who said it? It's been said that he said, you are not a child. You are an adult. You were old enough to be an ambassador for Biafra. You are telling me you don't know if he said it or not say it. You are saying he was said to have said, or he was said to have declared. They throw that out there, and then the young people pick it, and everybody's angry. And it's not just young people on the street. It's this. By the way, the doctor, the head of World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, believed the same thing. She wrote her own book with another gentleman. The book is titled Chinua Achebe, Teacher of Light. And she repeated, as a matter of fact, in her own book, she made it even worse. If you watch my video on YouTube, Did Awolowo Betray the Igbos? You will see they even typed it there so people can read it. She was talking about the idea of, Yoruba people and Igbo people had a meeting. They now said, if both of us, live at the same time, Nigeria will not be able to fight on two fronts, then they will leave us alone. But when the East now seceded, the West now said no. Therefore, the East now believe that the West has betrayed them. Then Papa now joined the federal government against them. Who do you think you are? They're joining somebody against you. So think about it. If someone as educated, as enlightened, and as respected, and I respect her, to be clear, as Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala would say that, do you understand how much grace you need to give to these clowns that come in the comment section insulting their parents? But guess what? Just because they believe it doesn't mean you have to believe it. It's a lie. A billion people can believe a lie. A person might decide to stay with the truth. It is lie. A person might decide to stay with the truth. It is not the truth because a lot of people believe in it. Somebody came here last week and said you are going for what everybody believes in, and you are telling it that is a lie. The question is not what I am saying. The question is that what you believe, is it a lie or the truth? If it's a lie, you could be 1,000, you could be a billion people. No, how many people are you, sir? Anyway, it could be a billion, right? Believing it for the last 500 years, it still doesn't change the fact that it is a lie. Having said that, we're going to go through some of the things we said last week. Last week I read a lot of books. We're going to read books today, but I'm going to use a different style because I'm going to speak more than we read. But then the idea is to get into details about Awolowo's involvement, where AWO was, how he was involved in the entire thing. So last week, by way of recap, we established the fact that Papa was under house arrest in 1962. By 1963, they'd already had the trial, the treasonable felony trial, and he landed in prison, Calabar prison, in 1963. The first school happened. By the way, let me just say, the first coup that was executed was in January. It wasn't the first coup that was planned. The first coup that was planned in Nigeria was actually Beljuku, was in 1964. The one that is in the public space. And that's the one we're talking about earlier. So 1966 was when the first coup was executed, January 15. And I've said it several times. There's nothing like Ojuku, Iransi stopped any coup. Iransi did not stop any coup. He didn't quell any coup. On that particular day, I think a lot of coups happened on that day. In 24 hours, from January 15 to January 16, at least 2 coups happened, if not 3. And we've talked about it before, but we'll talk about it another time. But the truth is, if you really look at what happened between January 15 and January 16, people are saying like 3 coups they happened. And no matter how many coups you count, the person who came up tops was Iransi. It was done, it was structured that way. It was intentional, it was planned. I know what the document I read last week even confirms the fact that this thing has been in the works for at least 20 years before it happened. Why am I speaking like this? Was I there? Somebody said you were not even born. That's the beauty of books, right? And that's why I also don't read one. We are able to compare things. You are seeing what Oyema is saying in 45. You are seeing what Azikiwe is saying in 49. You are seeing the plan they had, the 20-year plan they had that they were discussing in 64. If they're discussing the 20-year plan in 64, does not tell you that they started planning that thing in 44? You're looking at Azikiwe's newspaper of 1937, 38, 39. The excerpts are still available. If we ever have another session on that again, I'm going to read them again. The newspaper articles are there. There was a plan. And I always like to say this, and I'm saying this because of myself, not because of some people, because honestly, many of these clowns are not worth it. You just make your ethnic group look like something else. Many of you are not worth it. I'm doing it because of me. Because I cannot become stupid because your parents didn't raise you well. Here's the point. Majority of the Igbos may not have been planned. In fact, they were not part of their plan. But you see, there's something called the concept of leadership. If certain people do certain things on your behalf and they win, the blessings of that thing or the benefits of that thing will also accrue to you. Which was what we saw between 1960 and 1964 in the Federal Civil Service. A lot of the blessings, quote unquote, accrued to the Igbos in public service. It was not because they were better than any other person. It was because of nepotism, period. Everybody was complaining about it, but they just didn't care. Why? Because there was a plan. And if you were not here, like I said, there's a video on my page right now on TikTok. It's going to be on YouTube much later today. But I'm going to read something to you before we go on. It's from the book called Just Before Dawn by Collier Motoshaw. This is actually from the Igbo National Caucus. I read it earlier, but I didn't read everything. It's from Igbo National Caucus. It's a committee of the Igbo State Union and the Igbo Court. And they made a statement signed on their behalf by Doctors Mbadewe and Banugo, which, of course, strictly needless to say, was for private circulation. So what I'm about to read right now was meant to be for the people, within the caucus. It's not meant for the world to know. But again, like, if you remember when I was reading this in last week, I said, if you look at the acknowledgement, one of the people that he mentioned was Ikejiani. He was able to go to his library to use it. What did he find in his library? I don't know. But the point is that he talked about the personal archives of Dr. Okechukwu Ikejiani. But he also talked about archives of Ahmadu Bello University and Bayero and Bordeaux and Awolowo and different universities. Wherever he found it, he found it. And he published this in 1988. since 88 to 2025, not one Igbo man has come out to debunk this thing. Let me read to you what he says. The Igbo National Caucus, a committee of the Igbo State Union and the Igbo Court, had made a statement signed on their behalf by Drs. Mbadiwe and Banugo, strictly, needless to say, for private circulation. Here goes what they had to say. The censor's misfortune and unavoidable circumstances now endanger our 20-year struggle. Hold that one in your left hand. Mono chop it up, 20 years struggle. You will know why that 20 years, why the number is important very soon. So there was a census misfortune they're talking about. So in 61, we had the first census in Nigeria, caused wahala. 63, we had another one. It was really terrible. It was so bad in 63 that the East threatened to secede. And that's what they call the census misfortune. The census misfortune and unavoidable circumstances now endanger our 20-year struggle for the achievement of our objective. Enemies of our fatherland have alerted the dissident Yoruba and the reactionary Northerners. These are the people that are not tribalistic. Enemies of our fatherland have alerted the reactionary Northerners. The indiscreet utterances of many of our men have contributed largely to the dangers which now beset us when we have almost reached the goal, the promised land. You must no doubt remember that a similar indiscreet utterance by C.D. Onyema gave us no end of opposition by the Yoruba when he publicly stated that the domination of Nigeria by the Igbo is a question of time. Guys, have you noticed that every book, when you read books, you just find this thing about domination? They're not making it up. Onyema said it in 1945. The Igbo domination of Nigeria is only a matter of time. That phrase, and Onyema is part of this group. He said it in 45, but the stuff was actually set in motion in 44. How do I know? Please stay with me. Let's continue. You must no doubt remember that a similar indiscreet utterance by C.D. Onyema gave us no end of opposition by the Yoruba when he publicly stated that the domination of Nigeria by the Igbo is a question of time. Outwardly, all our official and unofficial utterances must adopt an opposite procedure. And we must always do our best to appear honorable, in quote, and cooperative. Remember, a statesman's words do not have to agree with his acts. In the East, the Efik, the Ibibio, and the Rivers tribes are still under complete control, even though their dreams for their own state have been completely shattered. Zeke wasn't on this thing. See, one day I'm going to do that session again on state creation. X is having issues. X, I'm sorry if you can't hear me very well on X, but please, I'm doing all I can. The next time we have X, will be on another device. I want you to have a best of times. But if you're not enjoying it, please go on YouTube. Busuri Oris on YouTube. You'll be able to, have a fun time there. In the East, the Efik, the Bibio, and the Rivers tribes are still under complete control, even though their dreams for their own state have been completely shattered. If you see the history of state creation in Nigeria, you'll see how the NCNC and the Eastern region frustrated the minorities of the Eastern region. And somebody wrote on my page the other day, oh, but it happened in the West. It did not happen. So there's a mistake we make in Nigeria. Just because there's stupidity happening in one region doesn't mean we have to have an equal stupidity or equal measure in another part of Nigeria. It didn't happen. If it didn't day, it didn't day. There's nothing like, oh, because it happened in the East, it also happened in the West. No, it didn't. In the West, Papa was actually one of those people who wanted the Midwest to go because he knew that sometimes even keeping some people can even get you into trouble. The Midwest was not contributing as much as they were getting back from the pulse of the Western region, and most of the representatives are not even in action group. Of the 27 representatives from Delta and Benin provinces, only six were in AG, 21 were in NCNC, but they were getting every single thing every other person got, and they contributed between 10 and 18% of the revenue. So no losses like that, but it's going to be minors according to action group if, for instance, we're the only region broken and no other region was broken, which was why action group supported COR in the East and Middle Belt in the north. Anyway, that's not today's topic. I'm just trying to make a point that the idea of the East not allowing other regions to go, whether it was the Southern Cameroon or it was the CO, that's the Calabar, Ogoja, or Rivers, the reason they didn't want them to go was because of the same issue of domination. And it's not just this book. You also see it in the book by Nebo Graham Douglas. The book is called Ojuko's Rebellion and World Opinion. If you want to see that, join the Telegram channel. You'll find it there. By the way, we don't put ebooks out there, but because this one is hard to come by, you will not be able to find the hard copy. That's why we have it there. If you want like real books as well, you can go to Redomi Books. But if you want to have access to that particular book, please go to Redomi Global on Telegram. So let's go back to this. It says, despite the intrigues of Okotiebo and Omosage, we have succeeded in clamping Osadebe firmly on the Midwest saddle, thus taking care of the Urobo, Edo, and Ishekiri. Okpara showed his hands too quickly last year, 1963. 20-year struggle. Last year is 1963, so this year is 64. So the whole plan started in 44. Oyema spoke a year after they planned it. Azikiwe spoke 5 years after they planned it in 1949 at Aba, where he said, the God of Africa has specially created the Igbos to liberate the children of Africa from the bondage of the ages. I'm quoting him verbatim. That's what he said. The master race idea. Then he says here, Okpara showed his hands too quickly last year, 1963, when he was overconfident that the census figures would be to our advantage and that the struggle was almost won. He would have pampered Fani Kayode till an NCNC victory in the regional West elections was secure. Then we could have ruthlessly dispensed with him and put a more amenable person like Akinfo Sile in the saddle. Play up Awolowo at all times. This will keep up the resistance of Action Group members and stop them from uniting with the NNDP to form a solid Yoruba front. This is vital, and there is no harm in this pro-Awolowo propaganda, for he is no longer a headache or danger to us. This you need to know whenever you are reading just before dawn. You must set forth at dawn by Wole Soyinka. All the thing that was being done for AG at the time was based on this idea. Like I said, I don't really like talking about events without knowing the cause. I want to know what actually made these things happen. The reason for propping up AWO was so that Yoruba people would not form a front and then NCNC would win. And the Igbos would take advantage of it just like they did in the Midwest. Play up Awolowo at all times. This will keep up the resistance of Action Group members and stop them from uniting with the NNDP to form a solid Yoruba front. This is vital, and there is no harm in this pro-Awolowo propaganda, for he is no longer a headache or danger to us. We are happy that our protocol on cessation of newspaper attacks on Sardauna and on other northern leaders have stopped. Amici and Okafor are to be complimented so far. Everything must be done to appear to appease the Sardauna and Ribadu. But Balewa, we can always deal with. If we can then win the West at the next regional election by keeping the Yoruba divided, we shall secure control of the federal cabinet and the country, not in 1964 as we envisaged, but in 1969. 5 years may be a long time in our personal lives, but to a people such as ours, it is further time for preparation. What book am I reading? Just Before Dawn by Kolyo Motosho. Who is speaking here? It's a letter written by the Igbo National Caucus of the Igbo State Union in 1964. Everywhere you look in Nigeria history, the people that are supposed to be very, very circumspect are the ones who speak the most ridiculously in Nigeria. While everybody is building their own regions, your own is to be destroying other people's regions just to prop yourself up. You don't care about what you have at home because Ojuko Koroyi Avisheni. We're going to get into some things today. All of this is just introduction. One more thing I want to read before I get into the topic proper. Let me ask, maybe I wouldn't have to read it. If you were here when I was talking about the drama that Ojuku's people used to do in Aba, please let me see your hand. Oh, sorry, not hand. Just write hi in the comment section, just so I know if I should repeat it or not. If you were here when we discussed it, if we had enough people, then we'll just move on. Okay, we have 1 yes. Oh, of course, you were here. My regards to you, madam, by the way, math tuition. And tell madam that kíní kan ló ń kó báyìí yẹ. Kíní kan ló ń kó pọ́npọ́ báyìí yẹ. Wọ́n lọ̀rọ̀ àwọn ọmọ burúkú tó wá lẹ́ẹ̀kan yẹn. So tí pẹ̀tẹ̀pẹ̀tẹ̀ tàbá náà ní pọ́pà tó bá tàbá wọn kọ́mọ̀ bínú. Ara ẹni yẹn. Please repeat it. No. Okay, so let me just go through it. All right. I was saying that when I was in a different frame of mind when I said it earlier. Because almost on the coco, thank you, Obalufon. Almost on the coco ba ye. So tí pẹ̀lẹ́pẹ̀lẹ́ tí mo lọ ń pọ̀pá yẹn tó bá lọ ta bá Mrs. Math tuition. Make she no vex, eh? She's still our wife. But it's important for us to make certain things clear. People move mad a lot in Nigeria. I can't say because I have a wife. By the way, we love her. But we have to be very clear. It's like what Sheila said over the weekend. The wife is Igbo, but she made it very clear, saying, "Nne Yoruba, Baba Malo Lomo, Yoruba la Omo." That's the point. If you have an Igbo wife, for instance, who she don't vex finish, maybe she no vex. So if she vex, she goes to understand why. A person cannot come here and denigrate me, and I'll be smiling with them. I'm not. Me won't shake Bewudani. Me the against your mother log besiwa. So by serve hot you collect ni. Timba sorrow me if sorrow ni. You go because sorrow maso. Or biba. Can't a person cannot come that doesn't have what I possess and then speak down on what I have, and I'm going to keep quiet just to make sure the person doesn't feel bad. How about my own feelings? How about my feelings? Anyway, I like what Sheila said. Wife is Igbo, but the kids are Yoruba. So they are raised as Yoruba people. Not all this one that they're having confusion about, am I on daddy's side or mommy's side? You're on the side of sense, of wisdom. What did I say earlier? Can you ask a question about what the other guy you added said? Maybe after this. Let me quickly say something. So I was talking to the lady earlier, which is, I prefer that frame of mind because we're having a conversation unlike, some other people. But let me go back to that place now. The idea basically is I was saying that I read something in the night and it made me understand why certain Igbos believe what they believe. And no matter what you say, they're not going to change their minds. Right? No matter what you say, they're not going to change their minds. So whatever they believe, they'll just say, this is what my father told me. And one of the reasons is that it's not because they are bad people. It's because they really believe what they are saying. It may be a lie, but they believe it to be true. And I always believe that the way Ojukwu got that message across to them was using radio and pamphlets. Because, of course, it was a propagandist, using newspaper. They had the publication, and then, of course, they had Radio Biafra. But then it was more than that. The only shame I see in this is that they reenacted something. The idea they did was good because we've been doing this for centuries. I'm glad they eventually caught up to doing it. But then the worst thing is that it was actually full of lies, but they now said this thing to the next generation. And that's why we now have problems in Nigeria, because the next generation believed that their parents did not lie. And I don't even think their parents knew they are lying or they were lying. They just believed what they also heard or saw. Now let me read this to you. So I'm going to read from a book called The Nigerian Civil War. It's by a man called John Desecration. And I'll read page 167. It says, I first heard the Biafran. Let me take it slowly. Sorry, Mambo. Sorry, we have some retards on YouTube as well. People like say they've opened the asylum today again. Oh, God. I thought they were going to at least keep some people in the asylum. All right, let's get back into this. The Nigerian Civil War by John Desenjo. It says, I first heard the Biafran version of what went wrong under rather strange circumstances. It was at a charity entertainment, raising funds for refugees in Biafra last year. Sorry, raising funds for refugees in Biafra a year later. They had been singing and dancing and speeches, but the set piece of the evening, to which all the notables of Abatown had been invited, was a melodrama depicting the blood-stained history of Biafra. The two coups, the massacres in the north, the Aburi meeting, the outbreak of war, it was all there, cleverly acted on a small stage in the dimly lit Abatown hall. Federal MIGs had been over us at dusk, spitting fire and flame, but nobody bothered about them now. The audience, entirely Biafran, apart from myself, was wrapped in what I can only describe as a deeply religious glow. The high point of the play was the invasion of the Midwest. The audience, a little like that of a Victorian music hall, participated eagerly but reverently. Then came the fall of the Midwest, groans, incredible characterization. There was Banjo, my neighbor pointed out, talking blithely to Ojukwu about reaching Lagos and Ibadan soon. And there he was again, hatching a dreadful plot with Alale and Ifajuna, the gold medalist high jumper, who shot the federal prime minister in the first coup. And now quietly from the shadows of the wings came an unmistakable figure. Tall, long white gown, punchy stomach, two cushions, and small round spectacles on wire frames. Of course, Awolowo, deeper groans. In his hand, a symbolic bag of gold. He's doing a deal. Listen to this, in the play. Papa is supposed to be carrying money and doing a deal with Banjo. He's doing a deal on behalf of the federal government and himself with Banjo, Alale, and Ifajuna. They are to sell out to the Midwest, return to Enugu, kill Ojukwu, take over Biafra, bring the war to an end, and then the final Machiavellian twist with Awolowo turn on Gowon, depose him, and take over Nigeria. They sat down in the dingy basement in Biafra and came up with this story and acted it for the people to see. The people believed that to be true. A perfect historical scenario written perhaps by a Biafran Olinshed for a Biafran Shakespeare. The pact is sealed. Banjo orders his bewildered men not to fight and to allow the federal troops through. To allow the federals through. The advance from Ore turns into a retreat, the retreat into a rout. Town after town falls. The Midwest and all hopes of a quick end to the war are lost. But thank God, the wicked plotters are found out in time to save Ojukwu's life. Banjo and Ifajuna confess. Ojukwu reluctantly, Alale is his relative by marriage and he was once friends with Banjo. So Ojukwu reluctantly agrees that justice must be done. He didn't really want to do it, he just said justice must be done. The rot must be stopped. At dawn, the traitors, 4 of them, are shot by firing squad. Biafra and His Excellency leave to fight another day. Cotton, chairs, collection. The people saw that. Ojukwu and his people wrote a play and they dramatized it in front of people, telling them about what was going on in the West that they never got to. And while everything here we can spend time to debunk, the part I'm actually interested in for today is the part about Papa, where he says that they saw this white person, the long white gown, punchy stomach, in his hand a symbolic bag of gold. He's doing a deal on behalf of the federal government with Banjo, Alale, and Ifajuna. Did Awolowo do any deal with Banjo? Did Awolowo have anything to do with Ifajuna? What exactly was the connection between these people? Today we're going to get into some of those things. So let's get into this. We're going to start with how Awolowo was involved. So I said earlier that Papa was imprisoned in 63. He was released in 66 by Gowon. I want to make that very clear. He was released by Gowon. Every single book written by any sane person in this world will tell you that Gowon released Papa. Any other book that you see that Ojukwu released him, or where Ojukwu claims, the person who claimed it and the people who wrote it are both insane. The two groups, because there is no way he had the capacity or the power to do it. But people believe it apparently. Now there's a gazette of the federal government that was published on 12th August 1966. that details how Awolowo, Enahoro, Omishade, and the rest of them. Let me read that just quickly, so I have that on record. The issue now is where it is. Let me should they talk about on the Russia when you're Nigeria. It will take God to change certain people's mind in this country. They'll be telling you. Someone even did a video. By the way, somebody sent me, somebody tagged me. I think it was T. Tagged me in a video yesterday of somebody who took my video and said, "You must be careful of this guy. Let me break it down. Let me debunk his lie." The guy said something about a book. Then he now put a picture and acted as if he was talking about the book. What was inside the picture that he posted is totally different from what he was saying. Want to call people in propaganda? I have to switch something off. 1 second, please. I was like, how on earth are you talking to? There's something I've noticed, right? It's 1 second. It's the absolute disrespect that the average intellectual or writer from the East, or even content creator, the absolute disrespect they have for their people. Because you must disrespect your people to claim that you are reading a source, and what you're saying is totally different from the source, the so-called source that you're putting up. It didn't even take me 5 seconds to spot it. Like, now. Totally different. But guess what? And that's the problem. We have to respect ourselves enough to tell ourselves the truth. The only thing I can do is to do it respectfully. But when you tell people, it's like when you read books the book by Frederick Forsyth, for instance, or Achebe, I think they don't respect their readers. They must think their readers are stupid. In other words, you're not able to connect the dots. You're not able to connect the dots. You just hear something and you're like, oh, it must be true. Because so the reason you are believing it is because of the personality of the person saying it. In other words, it doesn't even matter what they are saying is a lie. That's why I say don't respect. So that guy was just putting something out up there. Apparently, his people did not notice. But I'm not going to go there and be, sparring with him and now comment in the comment section, and I'll be talking to some people. Are just like be loafing around and be stupid in your stupidity. Anyway, this is the official gazette of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. You find it online. It's different from the nonsense you hear Ojukwu did something. By the way, I'm going to read to you what Ojukwu actually said about Awolowo's release. But for now, let's start with the truth, and then we're going to visit the propaganda and debunk it in a bit. So this is the official gazette from the Republic of Nigeria. You see the date here, 12th August 1966. I'm just going to read to you because it's quite tiny. Republic of Nigeria Official Gazette, Lagos, 12th August 1966. Content: Instruments of Pardon, remitting the unexpired portion of the sentences imposed on the following: Chief Awolowo, Chief Anthony Aronsele Enahoro, Lateef Kayode Jakonde, Michael Adedapo Omishade, Sunday Ebiotoma, Effiong Okoneyo, Samuel Akombi Onitiri. Let me read this to you. It says, by His Excellency Lieutenant Colonel Yakubu Gowon, Head of the National Military Government, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces of the Republic of Nigeria, whereas Chief Awolowo having been duly convicted of the offense of the treasonable felony, and he's been sentenced to 10, 5, and 2 years, and he has served a portion of the sentence originally imposed on him in September 1963. Whereas the Supreme Military Council, after reviewing his case, is pleased to remit the sentence and to grant a full pardon. That from Go On. 1 second, please. Let me help somebody. There's someone here who is very interested about what's happening to Benue people, so let me help him find his way to Benue. Greet the governor for me. We already talked about Benue. If you really want to make it your topic, go and open a live and have the conversation there. Anyway, what was I? So that's the official gazette. That's the instrument of pardon. It was not by Ojukwu. But then Igbo said that Papa was released by Ojukwu. The question is that so? Is it true? And if it is, or is it true? If it is, how is it true? If it's not, how is it not true? Let me read something to you from a document. It's called The Forgotten Documents of the Civil War. The Forgotten Documents of the Nigerian Civil War. Let me say it again. The Forgotten Documents of the Nigerian Civil War by Odia Ofemon. Let me read to you what Ojukwu said. Ojukwu was the one who said it, and his people believe it. They don't care whether it's true or not. Because he said it, they believe it. And that settles it. Why? Because he's another savior. Every generation has a new level of stupidity. Let me read this to you. He says, Dean Emeka Odumegwu Ojukwu himself will not give up civil war reflexes that ruined millions. In an interview in Boston on July 9th, 2001, Ojukwu told a questioner, quote, "We've said this over and over again so many times, and people don't understand. They don't want to actually. If you remember, I released Awolowo from jail. Even that, some people are beginning to contest as well. AWO was in jail in Calabar. Gowon knows, and the whole of the federal establishment knows, that at no point was Gowon in charge of the East. The East took orders from me. Now, how could Gowon have released Awolowo, who was in Calabar? This is 66, so this is not after the war. It's not during the war. This is August of 66. It would not declare Biafra until May of 67, no. Stay with me. Now, how could Gowon have released Awolowo, who was in Calabar? Because the fact that I released him, it created quite a lot of rapport between Awolowo and myself, Iro. And I know that before he went back to Ikene, I set up a hotline between Ikene and my bedroom in Enugu. Iro Popo, Iroini. He said he tried like an elder statesman to find a solution. Awolowo is a funny one, you see? See how smart this guy is. Awolowo is a funny one. Don't forget that the political purpose of the coup, the virginal coup that began all this, was to hand power over to AWO. Who says this? Who said this? Ojukwu. When did he say this? 2001. Is this the first time he said it? No, the first time was in 1967. 18 months after the war was the first time we heard that the reason for the coup was Awolowo becoming president. And where did we hear it from? From the Eastern Regions newspaper. Let me say it this way. There's no single person who planned that coup, whoever mentioned AWO has been the reason for the coup until after July of 67. And the first person who said it was Nzogu, and he said it afterwards when he was having an interview with Taisholari. Every document available tells us exactly why they did it. The best thing you would say, this is the crazy part, and I know that's not today's topic, but it's important to mention it. The best thing you can claim is that they wanted to release Awolowo from prison, because you will find that in Adeboyega's book, Why We Struck. But guess what? By the time you read the special branch report of April 1966, that report debunks Ademoyega's work. Ademoyega's claim in that work. Ademoyega said that they had plans to release Awolowo, Onitiri, Omishade, Jakonde, Enaoro, and the rest of them who were in prison in Calabar. They were going to release them. By the time you read the special branch report of April 1966, and by the way, that report is one of the most important documents about the first coup in Nigeria. Why? Because it's a report that was written after interrogating 200 people and all the coup plotters and coup executors that were caught. Every single one of them was interviewed. So that's Nzogu, Ifajuna, Okafo, Nwobosi, Anuforo, Ademoyega himself, who again, all of them, OG, all of them, Bengbule, all of them were interrogated, and the document was produced. And in that document, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, in that document we discovered that even Nzogu was not the original planner of the coup. He didn't even know about it originally. He didn't know what the plan was originally. And that's why I've said it several times. Nzogu was a revolutionary. And while I hate what he did to the Sardauna, I actually understand the reason he did it. In his own mind, he's trying to change Nigeria, just like AWO Biafra. The rest of the crew, I cannot speak for them. You know why? Because from the very word go, it seemed to be that the entire plan was to have Igbo domination using a coup as a weapon, just because what other weapons they had did not work before 1966. And we saw it from the document we just read earlier. The truth of the matter is this. By the time you look at that special branch report, we discovered that the original planners were Ifajuna, Okafo, and Oji, and that they had no plans at all of going to Calabar. It's in the document. They had no plans of going to Enugu, Benin, or even Calabar. No plans. But AWO Biafra is writing in his book, we want to go and release people, because AWO Biafra thinks that he was one of the people that started the planning of the coup, but it was brought in October. They started planning that coup in August of 65. Ifajuna, Oji, Okafor. Then they brought in Chukwuka. Then they brought in Anuforo. Anuforo brought in Nzogu. Nzogu brought in AWO Biafra. That was how they became 7. 5 majors, 2 captains. And so why am I saying this? All these things that they whip up, they just use Awolowo's name because that's the only thing they can use to give themselves joy in the midst of their lies. There's no connection between Awo and these children of perdition. And yes, I call them that because that you have to be a child of perdition to be committed to lies. No connection. The first publication about Awo being the reason for the coup was something by the Eastern region that came out in 67. And even in 2000, and this is why I don't believe in, this man has done a lot of terrible things to Igbo people long. Our Igbo. Why am I voting? Who is this one now? That's how the lie started. But in 2001, Ojukwu was still repeating it, saying was one he had a telephone, a set-up telephone, he had a conversation with him. But let's wait though. Let's ask a question. Though. Did they meet? Did Papa and Ojukwu meet? Actually, they did. They did. And this is something about propaganda. You cannot have propaganda with everything being lies. You have to find truth somewhere and then weave lies around it for it to work. Or else, even the most simple person would know exactly what you're doing. But the reason the simple-minded people cannot tell that it's a lie is because there's a measure of truth here and there. Having said that, let me read something to you from You Must Set Forth at Dawn by Awolowo. So again, Awolowo was in prison. Was released in prison from 63 September, released in August 66 by Gowon. By the way, he wrote a letter to Iransi while he was in prison. You'll find that letter in 2 books. You see it in, the book is down there. The book is called My March Through Prison, Adventures in Power, Volume 1. My March Through Prison. And you also see it in Awolowo, the Political Moses. You find the letter that Awolowo actually wrote to Iransi. Nothing came out of it. And for somebody who organized it just to free Awolowo, I think they could have brought him out. Iransi became head of state on 16th January 1966. He was unalived on 29th July 1966. 6 months, he did nothing. Gowon became head of state on 1st August 1966. Papa was out of prison on 12th August 1966, 11 days. 11 days. And I read, I don't think I have to go back to some of the books I read earlier just to get into how, you know what, let me just read it just to make the point because to give us congruence. So let's read the book by John Desecration again. It's called The Nigerian Civil War. I'm going to read page 63. We have a lot of books to get into today, but it's going to be fun. You're going to like it. You are going to like it. All right. So, 1 second. Honda. Not the open. No. 1 second. Let me use another device to open it. Okay. Please don't stop about tapping on TikTok, YouTube as well. Let's share the live. Let's get it out there. Thank you very much for your support. We're all about the truth here, and we're all about learning. Wagabayo. Okay. So I want to read something about how Gowon actually let Papa go. Page 63. I can't see this now. What is up, Amo? Oh, just a second. This is weird. Just a second. Okay, I found it. So it's page 79. How come I wrote 63? Sorry about that. All right, let's get into it now. It says here, Gowon managed to broaden the base of his regime by immediately announcing the abrogation of Iran's unity decree, promising a three-phase return to civilian rule, and most importantly of all, releasing the popular politicians, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, that's AWO, the Yoruba leader, and Chief Anthony Nauro, the Midwesterner, who were imprisoned 3 years earlier by the Balewa government. Gowon thus received the credit and finessed it with the gesture of going out to the airport to meet Awolowo and greeting him humbly with the words, quote, "We need you for the wealth of your experience." There's a video evidence, by the way, there's video evidence of Gowon receiving Papa at the airport, right? So I just want to read that just to make that very clear that Ojukwu had nothing to do with it. It's just that he lies. He lied, and I think he still lies because, somehow his words are still here. Moving on. After Papa was released from prison, he participated in something called the Leaders of Thoughts. The meetings, for instance, you find in the book by Adetomo Ogunsheye, she mentioned how they were part of Leaders of Thoughts meeting. Say my husband and I with the arrival of the Yoruba refugees in the West, the Yoruba leadership was in dilemma. Under Gowon's, in fact, let me go back just a little. The book is called A Break in the Silence. Lieutenant Colonel Victor Adebukonla Banjo. It's written by F. Adetomo Ogunsheye. So she says here, Gowon was installed as the new head of state in Lagos. He was not of Hausa Fulani ethnic stock, but he was a Northerner. He appointed another army officer, Adeyinka Adebayo, as governor of the West. He also released the Western region leader, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, who had been put in detention by the Tafawa Balewa government, thus mollifying the West. Ojukwu, the military governor of the East, had declared secession and the creation of Biafra in response to the genocide against the Igbos in the northern riots. With the arrival of the Yoruba refugees in the West, the Yoruba leadership was in dilemma. Under Gowon's regime, the family had enjoyed a respite from harassment and experienced a feeling of being back into the mainstream of politics. My husband and I were therefore invited to the Yoruba Leaders of Thought meeting. This meeting was to deliberate on the stand of the Yorubas. So Papa was part of that meeting. And then eventually, of course, he was invited by Gowon to be part of his government. But around that time, certain things were also said that we talked about last week. So let's go to the book by Shoyinka, Wole Shoyinka. The book is called You Must Set Forth at Dawn. Just going to read a few things to establish certain things, and then we'll move on to other stuff. So again, we're trying to talk about AWO and Biafra. I'm trying to lay a framework. Last week, I know we read a lot, but sometimes it might take us more than one time to have this conversation to be able to, piece everything together. So you must set forth at dawn. 1 second. Sorry, guys. Let us try and open it. What page is this? Okay. You must set forth at dawn. What page is this now? 152. Sorry, guys. Okay, I found it. This part also talks about the meeting they had, that Awolowo had with Ojukwu, that he was lying about and saying that they had a telephone station connected to a telephone line connected to Ikene from Enugu. Please, let's power tap on TikTok. Please, this thing is hanging already. So if you're on TikTok, please, I really need your help. There's an activity. We have to power tap. And please remember that every time we have this session, it's like war. There are people who are bent on, trying to get the life down, and they've been reporting massively. So please, well, thank you, Mr. Matthew Olalekon. No, the X-Space is on, but it may not be as clear as I want it. But other people can see here. But if not, we'll make it better later. So I'm holding on because I want us to power tap, please. Thank you. And if you're on YouTube, please share the live. Let's try and get other people to see and learn and study together. All right. As I sat across the famous desk in Awolowo's study, my mind was not on my elder brother from my hometown, but very much on the encounter with the young major, who had threatened summary execution for the politician, amongst several other ominous signs. And what's he talking about? He's talking about the officer who had threatened to unalive Papa. Let me read what it says here. So again, if you have the book, I'm going to read from page 147. So it says, there was, however, a subsidiary question, one that arose from the first. We were deeply apprehensive for his safety, that's Awolowo's safety, perhaps no one more deeply than I, had a swaggering officer, a major and of the same Yoruba stock, not boasted to my face that he would personally take Awolowo to the nearest crossroads, tie him to a stake, and shoot him as an example because we know what he's up to. He has not yet given up his tribal games. The officer's definition of Awolowo's tribal games was so simplistic, it was frightening, being none other than the old man's reported reluctance to serve under Gowon's government if it was bent on war, and his insistence that the west of the Yoruba should not become a war zone if that prospect did materialize. So the idea of people calling Awolowo, by the way, this person, the officer who called Awolowo a tribalist is Yoruba. It's not different from the ones you see on Twitter these days and the ones even in real life, the Yoruba bots, you have tribalists. I mean, like I always say, you shouldn't be a bigot. You shouldn't hate people anyway. Like, it's a waste of time, waste of energy. But the idea of protecting your space that people call tribalism, own it. Own it. And I've said it several times, this idea of the tribalization that we do in Nigeria, Yoruba land should not be the laboratory where you practice it. Go and do it in your own house. Do it in your family house. And if you're Yoruba, you are doing it, maybe you're doing it at home. Start in your family house. Open the door. Let anybody enter and take over the space. Since you're detribalized, It makes no sense to say these things, because people think they're trying to. So anyway, this one is one of the ancestors, one of the forebears of the tribalized Yoruba. But I'm going to unalive Awolowo because he's tribalized. What's the basis of his tribalism? He says he didn't want Yoruba land to be part of the war. Anyway, let's continue. Awolowo received me in his office, which was dominated by a massive desk. Who is speaking here? Wale Soyinka. The book is called You Must Set Forth at Dawn. Awolowo received me in his office, which was dominated by a massive desk. It seemed even more substantial than it had 2 years before. We're going to move to the next one. Excuse me. We're going to jump. I have to move fast. I asked Awolowo, sir, I think you will agree that Gowon is bound. Sorry, 1 second, please. I asked Awolowo, sir, I think you will agree that Gowon is bound to offer you a cabinet position. Suppose you decide to decline the offer, you realize that your life may be in danger. Awolowo looked at me, paused thoughtfully, and nodded. Yes, I suppose I could find myself in that situation. My next statement to him was made with great hesitation, since I could not be certain that he would not begin to have doubts about my sanity. Quote, if you decide to refuse, I stammered, have you thought of going underground? I am sorry, sir. I know that after such a long spell in prison, it is a hard prospect to even consider asking you to resign yourself to another kind of prison, but I still have to ask it. Awolowo sat bolt upright at this, then relaxed again thoughtfully. Quote, well, I have never thought of that, but I've always insisted to myself that my first duty is to the Yoruba nation. We are a nation, and I put that nation first, then the one called Nigeria. If the moment comes when I firmly believe that it is in our interest for me to disappear, of course I will not hesitate. But you young radical people, what could have moved your mind in such an extreme direction? So I'm trying to explain how he eventually got to work in Gowon's government. At first, Papa was reluctant because he didn't want it to Yoruba. And then, of course, Soyinka is saying, but if you don't agree, they might come for you. Are you going to run? Are you going to hide? What would you like to do? So that's that. Secondly, I want to say this before we leave this book totally, is a part about Ojukwu. Ojukwu said something in that stuff that we read from Odia of Famon, quoting his Ojukwu's Boston interview, a Boston newspaper interview, where he claimed that he did this. So again, all the things I say in that book about Papa in a lie. There is no telephone connect anywhere. You know why? Because I'll read something to you now, how they had a conversation. It wasn't a telephone. It was a Nicodemus event. He went to meet Papa Nicodemusly. It was not a telephone. It was in Enugu. The meetings they had have transcripts. I've mentioned this several times. If you were here, you must have heard me say it. If you want to look for the transcript of the meeting, between Ojukwu and Awolowo. Here's the book that you should get. And you can get it on Radio Me Books now, Sha, because we're trying to put some things there. Get this book. It has the minutes of the meetings from 6th to 7th May 1967. You will read everything they discussed here. He went, no, not just in secret, though. He went in the night, in the dead of the night. That was when Ojukwu went to meet Papa. We're going to read what they discussed in 1 second. So it is true that Papa actually went to the east. But why did he go there? He went to placate Ojukwu, went to talk to him, to see if he would see reason and not just, go all over the place and, just foment trouble and look for war. Again, we're reading a lot of books today, so we'll be there. So Baba went to Enugu. He went with Chief Marere. He went with a representative from Lagos as well, from Midwest and then from the West. They went to talk to him. This is apart from the fact that kings had already gone to meet Ojukwu to placate him. 6 Yoruba kings went there. They said this last week. 6 Yoruba kings traveled all the way to Enugu. They went to the north as well, but they went to Enugu. Why did Balewa imprison the brilliant Awolowo? Balewa did not imprison Awolowo. That was a judgment of, it was Balewa government, Sha. But that's another topic of another. That's for another day. Let's just stick to this one. Oh, shoot, where was I? 6 Yoruba kings went to Enugu to talk to Ojukwu, 6 of them. And they went to the north as well. And the 6 were the Oni of Ife, Alake of Egbala, and Alaafin of Oyo, Oba of Lagos, Awujale of Jebu, and Olowo of Owo. They went to talk to him, and he still did what he wanted to do. Papa also traveled down. They had the conciliation committee. He still did what he wanted to do. But what happened at the conciliation committee, if you want to read the minutes, like I said, is in that book. But let me just read what Papa said to Wole Soyinka when they were discussing the events of that period. In the 1967 eve of secession declaration of national public figures, authorized by Yakubu Gowon to engage in dialogue with the Eastern leadership, had been led by Obafemi Awolowo, and the formal, well-publicized meeting between the two sides had lasted nearly all day. The Easterners had listed their grievances and demands, spoken with all apparent seriousness, and seen their guests off to their chalets. Late that same night, however, Awolowo was disturbed by a knock on the door. It was Ojukwu himself. He admitted that he had waited till late into the night so as to be able to speak to Awolowo in strictest privacy. Sure, said Awolowo, but he also insisted, thank God for wise elders. Papa insisted that at least 1 or 2 persons join them. That was agreed, and Awolowo called the adjoining chalet and woke up the police commissioner for the Western region, Olufunwa, and a close political aide. Accompanying Ojukwu was a small team that included a professor of history from the University of Ibadan. Let's just jump all those skinny. In fact, let me read everything. Accompanying Ojukwu was a small team that included a professor of history from the University of Ibadan, who, like other Easterners, had fled to their beleaguered state. Years afterward, in 1996, during the struggle against the Abacha dictatorship, the same Don introduced himself to me at a meeting in the United States and revealed his participation in the nocturnal meeting of 30 years earlier. His account was consistent and detailed confirmation of what Awolowo confided in me that afternoon. Odumegwu Ojukwu's mission was unambiguous. Awolowo told me. The young man had come to inform me that the East had decided on secession and that there was no going back. All that was left was the announcement of a date. He said, sir, I have not come to argue but to inform you it has been decided. It was clear that any discussion was futile. Awolowo continued. After all, we had done nothing but talk all day. Ojukwu confessed that he had agreed to meet the delegation at all only out of respect for my person. Biafra had already made the decision. I was not surprised. The chief admitted. I did one thing though. I made a request and told him that he should give us 2 weeks. Before he should at least let us in the West, me specifically, have a minimum of 2 weeks notice before you announce your decision. And he promised. Yes, he promised me that much. That's the telephone conversation that Ojukwu is talking about. It didn't happen between any. There was also a phone call between Ikenne and Enugu. It was a meeting a meeting that happened in the middle of the night. And I thank God that Papa was wise to say, it should not just be between me and you. Let's have somebody else join us. You know why? Because it's just your word against mine. What happened? No witnesses. That's wisdom from the ancients. Let's learn from them. Somebody come and say, I just want to tell you something. Don't know whether they're going to change their story tomorrow. All right. Is that the only place we have Ojukwu and AWO meeting? No. I'm going to read from a couple more stuff. Let's go to the Nigerian Civil War. By the way, this Nigerian Civil War is a book, The Nigerian Civil War by John de St. John. Okay, now let me just use the other stuff. Don't know what's happening to that. Please stay with me. Hope you're having a great time. We're going to dig today. Then hopefully we're going to get to currency today. What happened with the currency, Biafran pounds and everything, and then we'll move from there. We'll go to 20 pounds. We'll go to starvation. We're going to end everything with starvation. So it might take us the entire week, but we're going to get there. All right. So let's go to page 120. Okay. Kilo shaking or like a show more. This is weird. One second, please. This is weird. Anyway, it's the same point I'm trying to make. I just wanted to read it out, but for some reason I can't even see it. This old tech stuff can be... I think I found it. Yeah. Although a brilliant tactician, Ojukwu was a poor strategist. He constantly narrowed his future options and maneuverability for the sake of the short-term advantage. The East's uncompromising Confederate stand at the ad hoc conference, its refusal to take part in any of its future discussions, the rigid adherence to the letter of the Aburi Agreement, ambiguous though they were, Ojukwu's point-blank refusal to attend any future Supreme Military Council meetings, and the outright rejection of Decree Number 8, all put him in a position where compromise, especially in the inflamed atmosphere of the times, became impossible, even if he had wanted it. Again, Ojukwu was the one who rejected Aburi, not Gowon. Guys, if you're from the East, sincerely, I feel your pain. I feel your pain. Just about everything you believed have been lies. Or maybe everything you still believe. Now, life, I feel, sincerely, I feel your pain. But guess what? The truth is the truth. Ojukwu was the one who rejected Aburi by rejecting Decree Number 8, which according to NU Akpan, the Secretary of the Government, 95% of what they wanted, and according to Don Egboe, the private secretary to Ojukwu himself, Decree Number 8 was 98% of what they wanted at Aburi, and Ojukwu still said no. Ojukwu was a very stubborn person. I had no idea what it means to negotiate, just a spoiled brat. Let's get back to this. The East on compromise. Okay, I've already read that part. Then he goes on to say this. He also surrounded himself with a self-interested group of advisors, The inner circle being almost entirely his blood relatives from his hometown of Nnewi. You remember what we read the other time? The book by Nebo Graham Douglas is called Ojuku's Rebellion and World Opinion, and he mentioned something called the Nnewi clique. The Nnewi clique were the ones making decisions that have to do with the Eastern region. The East Consultative Forum that everybody is always talking about was a rubber stamp. That assembly would just rubber stamp whatever the Nnewi clique and Ojuku agreed to do. By the way, that book is available free of charge. We're not paying anything. You find it in the Telegram channel if you join Radio Me Global on Telegram. REDOMI Global. You know what? Let me type it just in case somebody here wants to. So let's do it on YouTube. One second, let me just put it out there just in case somebody else wants to join. So you find the document there. He spoke about the Nnewi clique and how they were running the whole thing. Now, to find it in another book here also, of course, helps you to understand that they were not just making these things up. So he called them people from his blood relatives from his hometown of Nnewi. They were the ones in the inner circle. And it's not surprising. When Ironsi was head of state, his circle was entirely Igbo. Talk about nepotism, talk about clannish mindset, about ethnic jingoism. That's what you find. So he says, the inner circle, he says, he also surrounded himself, that's Ojuku, with a self-interested group of advisors. The inner circle being almost entirely his blood relatives from his hometown of Nnewi, of whom Mojeku and Nwoke were the most influential. A certain arrogance, carefully concealed in interviews with foreign journalists and others, but they're all the same, helped to poison relations with other Nigerians, some of whom were valuable potential allies of the Eastern cause. He alienated Awolowo when the latter visited him in May by his offhand and brusque treatment of the older man, and later boasted that he had run things round his military colleagues at Aburi. And although he talked a lot about reactivating the Southern Alliance, his actions worked against its revival. The expulsion of non-Easterners from the East, and even more crucially, his failure to woo Chief Awolowo, the key political figure at this time, left the East more isolated than it need have been. All right, let's move quickly from that and go to the book by A.H.M. Kirkirin. This book is called Crisis and Conflict in Nigeria. Just one more thing, then we'll move to how Papa might go on. So I'm trying to build it, but I'm also trying to make sure that I'm not just... I should type the book page. Guys, I beg. There are some things that you shouldn't be asking. I beg, seriously. How now? Abba. How will I pause that page? So every time I want to read, I should type the page. Abba. Ejo. A track I bongo team more so. Emma wa page in front. Eshesa. Eshema. Atumbo. Lord Tumbo. Bang bang bang. Oh, it's 289. My books. Where to buy my books? The details one, Radio Me Global. No, they're not my books. So my own books are on Seller and Amazon. By the way, I've been working on something. When it's available, I'll let us know. How are you? All right. So this is from Anthony. Now, thank you very much, Tom. Thank you. I will talk about it. This is from Anthony Nauro's speech at Addis Ababa, 12th August. I quote this speech a lot because it sets things in perspective. So when they met, one other thing that happened, by the way, again, the full stuff is inside the book. You can get it on Redomi Books. And a link to that is on the Redomi Telegram channel that I put out already. Excuse me. So you have all those things here. But let me read something to you from that meeting they had from an AWO speech. It says here, in answer to a specific query by Chief Awolowo, the leader of the peace mission, regarding the attitude of the leaders at Enugu to the former northern region and secession, Mr. Ojukwu replied, quote, on the specific question whether there is a possibility of contact with the North, the answer is on the battlefield, end quote. In answer to a specific query by Chief Awolowo, so when he asked the question, he told him, now we will meet on the battlefield. Meanwhile, every conceivable concession was made to Ojukwu, who was then the military governor of the East. So move on from there. Those are, I mean, they are more religious books. Don't worry, the political books will come soon. But there's some religious books, and then there's one Yoruba poetry, Yoruba language and English in there as well. It's on Amazon. It's also on Seller. If you want the electronic version, just buy on Seller. Seller is SCLAR.co. But we'll do political stuff very soon. I just think we'll get there. Yes, social mess. Chief DI. Yeah, social medicine is the Yoruba stuff. So anyway, so thank you very much. So what you see here essentially is everybody was trying to meet him, and even when they asked him what was going to do, he was bent on fighting, which is why I say every time I feel so sorry for folks from the East, but they don't feel sorry for themselves. So maybe everybody should stop feeling sorry for anybody. I'll go and pray about it, whatever God says. Chief DI, thank you. Thank you. All right, so let's get into, there's some very interesting stuff there. There's the prostitutes masterclass. What's in your house? Who broke my heels? Fantastic stuff there, but we'll get to politics very soon. So let's have this. So we've established so far, Awolowo was in prison. Was released. He was in prison in '63. Was released by Gowon in August of '66. Was part of Leaders of Thought. He was invited by Gowon to be part of his government. He met with Ojukwu, right? But he also met with Gowon. So that's where we're going right now. He met with Gowon. So let's use this book to understand that one. This book is called Gowon, The Biography of a Soldier Statesman by J. Isawa Laido. So contrary to what Ojukwu said, where it was like, na fight, let me read to you what Gowon said. On May 20, 1967, Gowon responded to the request of the National Reconciliation Committee. In his reply, Gowon said he accepted all their recommendations and directed that all ministries and departments should resume normal services with the Eastern region with effect from May 23, 1967. So that's Gowon's response when he eventually met with Papa. He accepted all the responses. By the way, just as a side talk, I want to read something to you about how Gowon actually felt about Igbo people. Gowon, he was very disturbed that Ojukwu did not feel for his Igbos as much as he felt. He appreciated Ojukwu's problems, but felt that Ojukwu was inhuman to play politics with human lives. I bent backwards, quote, I bent backwards to ensure that we restored sufficient trust and confidence in the Igbo people so that they could come back with us. One was absolutely sincere because I thought in dealing with lives of thousands of your people, there was no room for cheating, falsehood, or lies. You had got to be honest, to resist temptation to score a political point on the other chap, and to continue doing so. The truth of the matter is that history will be very, very fair, very kind to Gowon. He should be very, very kind to Gowon. The things he did and the way he did stuff. Ojukwu was one who was wasting his people's lives to do politics. We're going to read those things. If not today, we'll get to it some other time. But let's continue. So, where were we? Papa met with Gowon. Ojukwu declares Biafra in May 30 of 1967, even though it was on May 20, 1967, that Gowon responded to all the recommendations of the National Consultation Committee 7 days later, he now created a state, 12 states on May 27, and then 3 days afterwards, Ojukwu declared Biafra on May 30th. Not because there was no other option, but because he just didn't want anything else but his own ambitions. Moving on. Gowon responds by now having their own, wars and stuff. Let me go to this. This is why I don't like reading too much. Kind of gets things funny. But just stay with me, please. I'm still in the book Gowon, the biography of a soldier statesman. By the way, all this thing we are saying, Papa was not part of the government yet, though. And even, but let me even read to you how he became part of the government. It says the political atmosphere in Nigeria was very tense, and for a while it looked like the federal government was not going to carry out any operations to effect its threat. Meanwhile, political changes continued to take place in the rest of the country. On 12 June 1967, Gowon fulfilled his promise of 30th November 1966 that he would appoint civilians into his government. By the way, Ojukwu was against this. All the while, he was against the fact that Gowon was the head of state. He was also against having civilians, but it's Ojukwu now. So let's continue. On that date, he appointed the first set of civilians to the Federal Executive Council. They were given portfolios as commissioners, i.e. ministers, and heads of the various federal ministries, and were reminded by General Gowon that they had been called into the FEC, that's the Federal Executive Council, as spokesmen for individual states. Sorry, not as... General Gowon... So let me read it again. They were given portfolios as commissioners, i.e. ministers, and heads of the various federal ministries, and were reminded by General Gowon that they had not been called into the FEC as spokesperson for individual states, but as elder statesmen and young reformers interested in assisting the armed forces to establish a new Nigeria. So that's how Papa became a part of them. But we've come... Don't worry, I'm going to read a few more things that I'll just spend some time explaining. So Papa joined the force. Papa joined the government, the military government of Gowon. But did he support the war? No. Okay? This was, by the way, this was in June of 1967. He appointed them on 12th June 1967. Right? And then, if you go to page 114, let me read a little stuff from this book. It says, it is pertinent to note that at this stage, the Western region was still largely sitting on the fence, even though Chief Awolowo had been appointed as the vice chairman of the FEC. So all of this is happening. Papa, Yoruba people, Western region were not part of the war or even the police action. We were on the fence. Like we're like, let's just settle this thing, regardless of how terrible it's getting. Let's settle it. Until something happened. What happened? Let me read it from page 115. That'll be too long. Okay, just read part of it. So it says here, given the frequent border clashes in Benue Plateau and East Central states between federal and Biafran forces, few people knew what was to happen in early July 1967. On the 5th of July 1967, General Gowon gave orders for a police action to be taken to capture Ojukwu and end Desecration. This was the beginning of the 30-month civil war. Let us turn first to the field operation of the war. The field operation of the civil war may be divided into 4 phases. I don't want to go deep into this. So So there's police action that ended on August 11, 67, started in 5th of July. Federal offensive in the Midwest was August 12 against Victor Banjo and Biafran forces, up until the fall of Port Harcourt and Onitsha in mid-1968, the period of stalemate between late 1968 to early 69, and then the federal government final assault, late 69 to January 1970. But that's not where I'm going. I want to read to you what changed Papa's mind. What changed Papa's mind? Let me just tell you, it was because the Midwest invaded. Let me read it from here. In reaction, Gowon, apparently incensed, declared a total war on the secession. So let me just go back a little. Secessionist forces invaded the Midwest on August 9 under Lieutenant Colonel Victor Banjo. We're going to talk a bit about him very soon. Secessionist forces invaded the Midwest on August 9 under Lieutenant Colonel Victor Banjo and with the collaboration of Lieutenant Colonel Okwechime and Colonel C.D. Nwawo. These forces moved very fast through Benin to Ore in the western state. In reaction, General Gowon, apparently incensed, declared a total war on the secessionists. An announcement by the Supreme Headquarters on August 11 stated that it was clear that what happened in the Midwest state last Wednesday was a military coup by Igbo officers of the Nigerian army stationed in the area. I already explained this thing. You'll find details in 2 books. Tragedy of Victory by Godwin Alabi Sama and The Midwest Response to Biafran Occupation by Uyilawa Uswanlele. How Igbo officers who were in the Midwest, they were Midwest Igbos, decided to essentially betray Nigeria by joining with Biafra and just making it very easy for them to take over the Midwest. Let's continue. This was the Commander-in-Chief's statement. That's Gowon's statement. From now on, the forces of the federal military government will reply with heavier blows for every act committed by the rebels and will pursue them in an all-out drive until the rebellion is completely stamped out. Unfortunately for Ojukwu, this invasion of the Midwest and incursion into the West boomeranged. It generated intense hostilities against Igbos in the Midwest. And then it says here, the incursion into the West reverberated to the Yoruba headquarters of Ibadan and generated distrust of Ojukwu. In no time, Awolowo on 12th August 1967 was making a broadcast to the Yoruba to support the federal government in the war. What are we seeing here? Even after joined Gowon's government, he and the entire Yoruba people did not support the federal government against the Igbos or against Biafra or Biafra against federal government. They were sitting on the fence, like essentially becoming the voice of reason. Let's see if he's going to change his mind. Everybody was like that. Even after Ojukwu declared Biafra on May 30th, 67, everybody was still, at least from the western part, we're not really trying to, side with anyone. What changed everything was Ojukwu's, again, ambition. And I've said this several times. I don't go back to it. Ojukwu wanted other people's regions. He wanted other people's spaces. And there is no coming back from it. Everywhere you looked, he was trying to get what belonged to other people. He wanted land in the Midwest. He wanted land in the West. He wanted land in Lagos. He wanted the North. And there are many sources for this thing. You see it in the Nigerian Civil War by John de St. George. You will see it in Enaro's speech of 12th August 1968. You will see it in his letter to Ojukwu. In Ojukwu's letter to Victor Banjo. It's just land hungry. He invaded the Midwest and then began to come to the West. And let's make something very clear. I've said it before. I'll say it one more time. Well, I'll still say it many more times, but let me say it now. Ojukwu going to the Western region was not just about getting to Lagos. Now, I know that a lot of propagandists from the East have repeated that nonsense. Oh, he's going to Lagos. If you read the book by Godwin Labi Sama, who is a military tactician and strategist, he said if you really wanted, he didn't know what Ojukwu was looking for in the Midwest, even if he said he was going to Lagos. Like, there was no reason for him to be there. The truth is, it wasn't about getting to Lagos, it was about taking over land. was about expansionism. If you read the book by Chinua Achebe, he said, Ojukwu said he wasn't really trying to take over land. You're not trying to take over land, but you are taking over land. You are appointing the governors of the land, and you are making sure that that governor is Igbo, and you are importing people from Enugu into the Midwest to become the Oga in the civil service. And you say you're not taking over the land. You are dictating to them that the revenue from that region should be coming to Enugu, and you say you're not taking over the land. What else do you need to do to take over the land? Move it physically. And then nobody really like, okay, it's bad enough. The fact that they now came into Ore, that was what changed Papa's mind about the whole thing. Now let me read to you what he said. He gave a speech on 12th of August. Let me say, I read Chebilowa. No, it's in the book. What was this man's name? I'll find you his name in a second. The book is called Chief Obafemi Awolowo, The Political Moses. I'll get you the title in a second. Where was this? Okay. The writer is Adidara Ombo. Adidara S. Oduguwa. Adidara S. Oduguwa. So let me read from page 143. An address by Chief Awolowo as leader of Yorubas at the meeting of leaders of thought held at Ibadan on Wednesday, August 16, 1967. Please stay with me. You're going to have a great time. This is the first meeting of leaders of thought in the Western states since the declaration of emergency on 27th May this year. The creation of 12 states and the inclusion of civilians in the Executive Council of the federal and state governments. Let me jump to the part that I think will interest us in this conversation. It says here, it must have been cleared to everyone by now that this course of action, that's the one that Ojukwu was doing, is inimical to the overall interest of Nigeria, because a disintegrated Nigeria could only consist of internecine armed camps in which resources which could have been used for promoting the welfare and happiness of the people would of a necessity be diverted to the purchase, possession, and eventual use of destructive weapons. Please listen to this. Besides, our immediate ancestors in Yoruba land, since 1900, as well as those of us who are old enough to take part in political activities, joined at a later stage by other Nigerian patriots, did fight to make Nigeria the united whole that it was when the British relinquished power to us in October 1, 1960. It would be most disgraceful and dishonorable for us to destroy this heritage. In the case of us who are still alive, it is too much to expect us to respond to an invitation to lend a hand in demolishing what we have labored so long with so much travail to build. Then he goes on to say, if the eastern region is allowed, this is one of the things that Chinua Achebe and Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala and the rest of them, there are many, even Ojukwu himself, have used as a crutch to say, oh, Yoruba would betray them. But let me read to you what he said. By the way, this is a statement that they always said, Papa said to Ojukwu. Papa never said it to Ojukwu. He actually said it at the Leaders of Thought meeting in August, after the war started. And this is what he said. If the eastern region is allowed by acts of omission or commission to secede from or opt out of Nigeria, then the western region and Lagos must also stay out of the federation. He didn't say that if the east went, who would go. He said if you were allowed to go, you would also go. And nobody allowed the east to go. Ojukwu was just being irrational. Otoro ni kama sọ. Hi. All right, let's go on. Anyway, that's it's a long speech. I'm trying to see the part I should read because it's quite long. So it says here, it is not denied that 5 years ago, some Yoruba leaders allowed themselves to be used as pawns on the chessboard of two crafty players, each of whom erroneously believed it was his destiny to dominate the Nigerian peoples. For the best part of these 4 years, Yoruba people knew neither peace nor contentment nor happiness. Since January 1966, however, the crisis was proposed on the Yoruba people of Western Nigeria as spread with increasing venom to the other parts of the Federation. What the rebels in the Eastern and Midwest states are now asking us to do is to allow the wakes of Holocaust, with which the areas they temporarily under their control, the afflicted or threatened, to be reflected back to Yoruba land. We will do nothing of the sort. On the contrary, the urgent task to which we should now bend all our physical, mental, and spiritual energies is to make it impossible for a single rebel, no matter his ethnic affiliation, as thus are those who are not with us, be they our closest relations, must be denounced as being against us. One of the things that Papa was also alluding to here was actually Victor Banjo. So one of the things I also want to mention today is something I read about Victor Banjo. Victor Banjo had invaded the Midwest. By the way, there are different brigades that invaded the Midwest. The one that Banjo led, Conrad was one who said, gold. And he also sits in Uyilawa, said, there was no problem, he just entered because it was helped by the Igbos who were there. And of course, his own style was different. But the guys that came in through Warri, through Sapele, through Ugeli, throughout, those ones were just merciless, and they unalived a lot of people in the Midwest. But anyway, let's move on from this and Mambo. No, once you are done with all this groundwork, we're going straight to money issues, how the currency was changed, what Ojukwu did that warranted it. What time is it? Okay, we should still get to that today. But before we go to that, let's get into Victor Banjo and how he was on his way to the West before Papa made his speech. Before Papa made that speech that we just read now. So, despite assurance from Banjo through his broadcast, the majority of the political thinkers in the Western region had genuine suspicion that once Banjo came to the West, the Biafran army would hijack the leadership of command, take over from him. The Western region had a genuine fear that should Banjo lead his army into the West, Ojukwu, the chameleon, would take over to annex the Western region. So the reason people started having issues was because they discovered that the way this guy they move, if he enter, Naibo in the brain come, and that is Ojuku's. Again, I'm not going to read it. Ojuku's letter to Banjo is in the book by Adeton Ogunsheye. You will see what plans he had for the West. So I think the leaders in Yoruba land thought like, if we allow this guy to come into Yoruba land, it's going to give us problem. But the question is that why should that be a problem? Because they actually wanted Banjo to come originally. That's the crazy part. Let me just read a few more things, and we'll establish that. So it says General Gowon had also appointed Chief Obafemi Awolowo as the Finance Commissioner of Nigeria and Deputy Chairman of the Federal Executive Council. By this appointment, Chief Awolowo assumed a position of importance and exerted enormous influence in the administration of General Yakubu Gowon. This was indeed a game changer which radically transformed the conduct of the war and the management of Nigeria's national resources. Banjo was surprised because the Yoruba elders of the Western region, headed by Awolowo, had written a letter to him to come and defend and fight for them. It appeared that they thought that he would come alone to build an all-Yoruba army and not to bring the Biafran army to the West. You see, if you read the preceding chapter of what we just read right now was where his sister was telling him that, listen, the way you are doing, you're acting like Afonja. According to this book, you're acting like Afonja. And these people come, they will take over the place. But they made the claim here. There's a reason I'm going slow like this. They made a claim here that the Yoruba leaders had asked Banjo to come and fight for Yoruba land. The question is that true? Actually, it is true. Let me read some to you from page 85. It says the leaders in the southwest were also holding meetings to appraise the situation on the roles to play in the tumultuous activities precipitating the war. They were civilians, though they saw Banjo as a rallying point for military action that could defend and protect them from the Northern Army. When the leaders in the southwest found that Banjo had been released, they sent a delegation to his sister to persuade him to return and fight for the southwest. They recognized that Banjo was a thoroughbred revolutionary and the Southwest needed him to provide leadership in their military army. It was hoped that in the event of war, Yoruba would not be defenseless. This was a brilliant tactical move, and the four regions would have gone their different ways. Banjo could have been happy to help his people as well. However, before that time, he was already supervising most of the commanders and senior officers of the Republic of Biafra. So they wanted him to come originally, but they wanted him to come and build a Yoruba army. But when they asked him to come, he was already leading Biafran army or commanding some of the brigades. So he didn't come. By the time he now wrote letters that he was coming, he had a Biafran army behind him. And Yoruba people were like, listen, don't bother coming because these ones, they're going to want to take over, which was exactly what Gowon showed in his letter to Banjo. He wanted to take over the space, and that's what Yoruba people saw and said, no, we don't want Banjo to come again. And that's why Papa made that speech that anyone who is not for us, no matter the ethnicity, no matter where they are from, we must count them to be against us. Because what they were going to do was to turn Yoruba land into a theater of war. Now, where am I doing all of these boring things? Because we're trying to understand the background to all this currency, kineko, starvation. We'll get to all of those things, but we're trying to build the foundations for the conversation. All right. I'm going to end this with you must set for that done. Then we'll now go into the currency stuff. I'm going to end with that one. Then we'll go to the currency stuff, and then this. So we're going to switch gears. I think I already talked about it. We were here the other day where we talked about how Soyinka and Obasanjo tried to plan the coup. I don't think it's necessary today, so let's just leave that. But if you want to understand how the role that Soyinka played in this whole thing, please read this book, You Must Set Forth at Dawn. And he talked about how he went to the east, by the way. Soyinka, let me just give you like a gist of it without having to read. He went to the east, he went to Enugu, he met with Soyinka, he also met with Ademoyega, and he heard what they wanted. And the matter of fact, what's his name? Ademoyega Banjo sent a message to the West. He also conveyed to him what the West wanted him to do at the time. So when you hear that the West sent a letter to him, Soyinka went to Enugu himself, and then eventually he got a message that he had to convey to Olusegun Obasanjo. Let me just read that one. I won't read everything, just that part. What is she gonna go? Okay, this is what I was trying to read. With the incursion of Victor Banjo's troops into the Midwest, all subterfuge, all fancy thing came to an end, affecting soldiers and civilian leaders alike. Obafemi Awolowo surrendered his bargaining powers. The Midwest, formerly a part of the West, a self-declared neutral until now, had been invaded and occupied. That region now threw its weight formally behind the federal government, where Awolowo was now Minister of Finance under Gowon, and it put an end to all his options. Nnamdi Azikiwe, Zik of Africa, and Igbo, and former president of Nigerian Federation, had already taken his place on the side of his fellow Biafrans. Azikiwe wisely kept beyond reach of the new regime, becoming a roving ambassador for the breakaway region, a powerful force internationally in the Biafran cause. We'll talk about some of this later, but I think I need to just take a short break. 1 second. We have some of these blockheads who just came in. Let's mute them. All right. All right. I think we've established everything I wanted to establish as how Papa got involved, why he decided to just say, you know what, I've done everything. Does anybody want to give us a recap before we move on? Because we're about to go into the 3 major things that they've accused him of: currency, 20 pounds, and starvation. By the way, all the stuff, Nalai. Probably get into that now. So just give me 1 second to. So if anyone would like to come up, let me just take a short break, or have someone, speak, and then we'll get back to the conversation momentarily. Anyone? Anybody? All right. Looks like you don't want me to rest too much. So, what have we discussed so far? Before we move to the next thing. Imprisoned, released by Gowon, asked to join the government, was reluctant, eventually joined the government, but was not supporting the federal government against Biafra or vice versa. Everybody was okay. It was on the fence, just like the entire Yoruba land. Ojukwu invaded the Midwest. The Biafra invaded the Midwest and eventually went to Ore. Yoruba stopped sitting on the fence, joined the federal government, and said no. Even though they've always wanted to support them, but since then they caused Wala, Yoruba declared to be on the Nigerian side. That's how Awolowo came to be on the Nigerian side. So I want to establish that first. Now, moving on from there, the issue of currency. Sincerely, I think I need a break. Would anybody like to add to the conversation? Just like 5 minutes? I don't need more than that. Just 5 minutes would be okay. Just need to stretch. Where am I? I should play music in the background. I would, if not for YouTube. So YouTube has this funny way of shouting copyright when you play music. I would love to play music. Okay. It's 5:23. So let me just continue. I know why I'm feeling this way. Sorry. 1 second. It feels better now. My back was aching. I should have put something behind, a cushion or something, but it's good now. All right. Let's get into the real issue. We're done with the background. Now let's get into all the accusations from the East. He granted this in 1983, You find this in, you know what? Let's do it this way. I'm going to share this on the Telegram channel. So let's do this way. Let me share it in the very careful sharing stuff because I don't want copyright. Voila. But let me share 1 second. I'm going to share it in the Telegram channel so you can all read it. Thank you very much. Oh, Ronkenumbe, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to put this link in the Telegram channel. Okay. It's from Nigeria Village Square, but was published by the news. I think it's something that's very good for everybody to have. So let me just put it there. If you're interested, you could just access it right there. Redomi Global. Okay. So you go to the learning materials, books and resources, you'll find this link. Flashback on Civil War. Awolowo defends himself against genocide accusation. Excuse me. Awolowo defends himself against genocide accusation. So the link is there right now. So the reason I want to read that part is because I'm going to be using it as oh boy, SRAGO. So there are three major things. Let me just let's get into this. There are three major things that Papa has been accused of, currency issue. He said, oh, he took our money, he did not return our money, our parents did not get their money. That's one. Number two, they speak a lot about 20 pounds. He collected everything and gave us 20 pounds. Something they should be grateful for, by the way, because it wasn't a debt, it was a gift. And then the third one is starvation. Now, of the three, starvation is the most emotionally charged. So to be the last thing we discuss, right? But we'll start with currency. And there's some interesting things that, we're going to uncover together. So let's start with his interview. This interview was granted in 1983 during the presidential campaigns. I'm not going to read everything apparently. I'm just going to jump to the part that has to do with the accusation. And then when we're done with all of this, we'll now discuss how Nigeria rebuilt the Southeast. We've heard that Nigeria did not do anything in the Southeast. Is it true? Or did Nigeria rebuild it? We're going to discuss how Nigeria rebuilt it. Why are we even... No audio about? Can anybody hear me? Hello? Okay, maybe it's the app. Don't worry. You could just maybe step in, step out, step back in. But I think the audio is good. Okay, maybe you just joined. Okay, please just, once you join, just hold on for a bit. The app can be like that sometimes. Here goes. All right. It is on record that Ojukwu admitted that two things defeated him in this war. And it's that at the day he left Biafra, and that's at the day he left Biafra, he said, one, the change of currency. He said that was the first thing that defeated him, and we did that to prevent Ojukwu taking the money which his soldiers have stolen from our central bank for sale abroad to buy arms. We discovered he looted our central bank in Benin, he looted the one in Port Harcourt, looted the one in Calabar, and he was taking the currency notes abroad to sell to earn foreign exchange to buy arms. So I decided to change the currency, and for your benefit, it cannot be told the whole world. Only Gowon knew the day before the change took place. I decided only three of us knew before then. Isong, now governor of Cross River, Atta, and myself. It was a closely guarded secret. If any commissioner at the time said that he knew about it, he's only boosting his own ego. Because once you tell someone, he'll tell another person. So we refused to tell anybody, and we changed the currency notes. So Ojukwu said the change in currency defeated him, and starvation of his soldiers also defeated him. These were the two things that defeated Ojukwu, and he reminds me, when you saw Ojukwu's picture after the war, did it look like someone who was not well fed, but he has been taking the food which we sent to the civilians, and so we stopped the food. We'll come back to the food thing later. Let's just start with the currency bit. There was an interview I read earlier of what's this woman? Evelyn Okorere. Let me 1 second, please, guys. All right. Was published by CNN in 2020. They happened with the looting. So Papa mentioned in this interview that Ojukwu looted 3 banks. And by the way, the same claim you will find in Attorney Naro's work. I know. Let's read the Nigerian Civil War by John Desecration just to confirm something about this whole currency thing. And then you will hear one story today. I have a story for you guys. Story, I'll read it now. Page 172 of the Nigerian Civil War by John Desecration. All right. Please stay with me. We're about to read. I want to read now, but it's a very fantastic story. Look back just a little bit. Okay. Okay, let's start from the previous page. The real criticism of Ojukwu and the Biafrans is not that they put their shirt on the horse, but that they failed to study, form, and train it for the race. The selection of leaders, first the unstable Banjo, then the egregious Okonkwo, was as Midwest Igbo immediately. There were nevertheless some initial gains for the Biafrans in their invasion of the Midwest. It was a dramatic, bold, exciting stroke, which gave a much-needed boost to Biafran morale. It showed Nigeria and the world that the war was not going to be a pushover for the federal government. It had Lagos and the West shaking in their shoes for a short but salutary period, and a considerable amount of valuable booty, arms, transport, food, and at least £2 million from the vault of Benin's central bank found its way into the Biafran war chest. So not only do we now have confirmation, by the way, there are 3 sources now that way you find, in fact, there are many. It's also in this book by Isawa Elago, the book called Go On, right? It's in the book, it's in the statement of Papa Awolowo. It's also in Anthony Nauro that he invaded banks. But we also now know the amount. Please note the amount because it's very, very important for this conversation. It's so £2 million. Okay? 1 second, please. Mathematical working to summarize everything. I just don't want to be talking because if we just talk, right, and we don't read any books, people can easily just come around and say, oh, it's you hate us or something like that. Sorry. There's something I'm looking for. Just give me a second, please. Okay, I found it. So I want to read something from Ron Kenyon, but they may say you conjured it all from space. Exactly. Exactly. Majority of what I have to read, I can actually just start saying it, but you know, it's easy to say, oh, you're just saying, because that's what they say. So it's your one against theirs, but it's better to, go through all of this stress. But thank you very much for staying with me. All right, so let's read another one. It's called Crisis and Conflict in Nigeria. This is volume 2. This is page 25. It says, meanwhile, a telling blow was struck at the Biafran economy by the federal government. Okay, been on it. A telling blow was struck at the Biafran economy by the federal government, cancelling all Nigerian currency notes and issuing differently colored ones. Within the month, Ojukwu had irrepressibly introduced Biafra's own postage stamps and currency, but Nigeria's move had nevertheless shrewdly negatived much of the price of the £2 million in old Nigerian notes seized in August 1967 from the Federal Treasury in Benin. You know, when you talk and people say, somebody said this last week on Twitter, one of my videos, person said, oh, but nobody complained of losing money. Ojukwu's people stole that money. As a matter of fact, when you read the book by Neya Borishade, he told Victor Banjo to do it. Banjo said no. And Neya Borishade said that's one of the reasons Banjo got in trouble with him. He was asked to loot the bank, he refused. Ojukwu's boys still looted it and got £2 million out of it. Now, we've read it from about 4 different sources. So all this thing of you're lying, you know that you're the one who is lying because you're just deceiving yourself. The truth of the matter is that they stole money. And it wasn't just from one place, it was from 3 banks. But in this case, we are staying with the first bank, Benin, and the money they got out of it was £2 million. 2 million Nigerian pounds at the time. Right? Biafra's ever-bubbling emotions were brought to boiling point by the rumor that 1,000 British soldiers destined for Nigeria had embarked. No, we don't need to read that part. The point, because it's about Britain. You know what, let me read it. Because I've already started, so it doesn't look like I'm hiding something. Biafra's ever-bubbling emotions were brought to boiling point by the rumor that 1,000 British soldiers destined for Nigeria had embarked on a troop ship at Liverpool. And in protest, British business offices were burnt and looted in Port Harcourt at an estimated cost of £1 million. The funny thing is that it wasn't actually soldiers coming. According to the British, it was students going through the west coast of Africa. But anyway, they burnt down shops in Port Harcourt. Igbos did that, and the cost was about £1 million. But that's not what we're really interested in today. What we're saying is the fact that they actually did invade Benin, and they carried away £2 million. And that was the reason currency was changed in Nigeria. It wasn't because of hate for Igbos. It was because of love for Nigeria. And this is one of the issues. When you have a main character syndrome, you think everything is about you. It's not really about you. In other words, you have stolen my money. Why did he steal the money? He stole the money so that he could take it to the black market and use it to buy guns. That was why he stole the money. If I change it, then I'm going to be able to safeguard my own people. Let me read something quite interesting from how that actually worked out. The events that happened and how they were carrying money and taking abroad to be able to buy guns. I think the reason this Rwagana is really is very powerful is because the loss was all crazy gone, so they're very mad about it and just feel like, you know what, they're going to have to lie to everybody. For instance, in the book by Ishawa Eligo, it says Enugu and Calabar soon fell in October 1968, demonstrating clearly the Midwest adventure had overstretched resources of the secessionists. In another big blow, General Gowon ordered the change of Nigerian currency in January 1968. It undercut the activities of Ojukwu in the arms black market. The money he was stealing was to go to the black market and buy arms. Again, a person wants to fight, has no weapons, has no way of getting weapons, but and everybody's saying don't fight, and you're saying I'm going to fight. When it was not time to fight, you now go to your enemy's place to steal the enemy's money. You now use the enemy's money to buy guns and use it to fight against the enemy. But the enemy changing that currency makes the enemy a demon. Are you not sure you are a demon yourself? How am I supposed to allow you use my money against me? That's the reason Nigeria changed it. And by the way, that's not the worst thing that happened with the currency issue. There's one more thing I want to read. Actually, not one, but two more things. But let's read this one first. I hope next week, tomorrow, I'll just go into gist. I want to try and read less book. I hope people, I'll see after Isha. They're buying from France, Israel, and South Africa. Let's go back to the book by John de St. John, page 187. Gowon opened the new year, 1968, with a rash prediction. The war would be over and Nigeria won again by the end of March. But then, in one of the most effective federal moves of the conflict, it was announced that the Nigerian currency was to be changed. A mere 19 days was given for the operation, which had been kept a closely guarded secret and took the Biafrans completely by surprise. Oh, okay. Let's go back, take it back again. Remember that, Awolowo was saying that nobody else knew about it. So it says here, a mere 19 days was given for the operation, which had been kept a closely guarded secret and took the Biafrans completely by surprise. The Biafran government had been planning to issue its own currency eventually, but was not prepared for this sudden development. Overnight, all Biafra's carefully husbanded reserves, foreign exchange, of course, was unaffected, but the reserves in Naira or in Nigerian pounds were threatened with being reduced to worthless scraps of paper. The Biafran government mounted a panic operation of loading Nigerian currency notes at rock bottom prices to anyone who would stake them. Inevitably, with such a short deadline, things went wrong. Mysterious men carrying bulging suitcases stuffed with Nigerian money fanned out to the world's currency centers. Some were successful, but more were not, and were either caught or, having missed the deadline, simply dumped the now worthless notes. Nigerian currency worth £230,000 was found in 7 abandoned suitcases at London Airport a day after the issue of the new notes. £300,000 turned up in Rome 4 months later, and £7 million was impounded by the Togolese authorities when an unmarked aircraft coming from Biafra landed to refuel at Lome. Even after the war was over, the occasional hoard of old notes continued to surface. The Biafran government is reliably estimated to have lost £30 million altogether. And although it managed to put its own new currency efficiently and rapidly into circulation, the operation dealt a massive blow at the country's financial resources. That was AWO, by the way. So, if you're Yoruba and you wonder why he's hated so much, that's why. Well, that's one of the reasons. He came up with a move that essentially crippled Biafra's plans and just made it look like they didn't know what they were doing. They stole money they couldn't use. They stole the money, but they couldn't use the money. And at the end of the day, they lost about £30 million. Somebody wrote in the comment section, say, good play by the Nigerian government. Absolutely. Absolutely. one more thing before we now go to what Biafra did to respond to what Nigeria did. In response to what Nigeria did. 1 second. I'm going to read from Alabi Sama's book. The book is called Tragedy of Victory by Brigadier General Godwin Alabi Sama. I'm going to read page 504. The book is actually very big. 1 second. By the way, that book is available if you want it. Hard copy initial. One second. Go. All right. Oh, well. Okay. Good. Biafran economists also not anticipate the strategy in currency change. All the purchases of food and weapons were backed up by Nigeria's foreign reserve. I'll take that again. All the purchases of food and weapons were backed up by Nigerian foreign reserve. So Nigeria changed its currency. This was a very brilliant move by Chief Obafemi Awolowo. The information for the change of currency was leaked to Ojukwu, who loaded 2 plane loads of Nigeria's currency to Switzerland. New York Times of January 15, 1968 reported that more than 20 tons of Nigerian banknotes were flown into Switzerland in 2 chartered planes, but it was too late. They were never able to achieve results. That's from The Tragedy of Victory by Godwin Alabi Sama. But the question would be this. So when all of that happened, what did Biafra do? Let's listen to Biafra's spokesman. He's late now, but he wrote a book before he died. The book, of course, is called There Was a Country, and the spokesman I'm referring to here is Gino Achebe himself. I would like to say something. And he says here, I would like to say something. No, not from beginning. In time. Okay. I would like to say something about the structure of the Biafran state. The Republic of Biafra took its name from the Bight of Biafra. Hold on, please. Let me just stop. You know all these people that used to come on social media and tell you that there was a Biafra from 17th century. There was a map that was by Fernando Po. I've seen that. They say Fernando Po. You guys should. I pray you be healed in Jesus' name. Again, just like he said, like I said, a broken clock is right twice a day. I may not like the book because of the propaganda leaning and all of driven narratives, but you still find truth here and there. One of the truths you find here is the fact that Biafra was not named for any ancient anything. It was named for the Bight of Biafra, just like Benin Republic was named for the Bight of Benin. Biafra, the name came from the Portuguese, but that name itself came from the Senegambia region. There's a people there called Biafara or Biafada. And these guys, Portuguese, just use their name to name that particular area and call it the Bight of Biafra. It's not that there was a people in that place that used to be Biafra in Guinea century. They now bring some stupid maps and tell you that that map tells you that they've always been there. It's a lie. It's a lie. I think at this point people should stop just believing nonsense. And this crazy part is that some of these people speak Queen's English. They say they will go to, you've studied, you have degrees, but you just haba. So it took its name from the Bight of Biafra, not from an ancient, and there was nothing ancient about it. All right. The vast expanse of water covering the continental shelf into which the Nigeria body empties before flowing into the Gulf of Biafra. After Biafra's surrender, that body of water was renamed the Gulf of Guinea. The origins of the word Biafra are difficult to trace, although historical accounts point to Portuguese writing from the 16th century that it may have derived from. That Portuguese writing has nothing to do with Eastern Nigeria. It has to do with the Biafra people in the Senegambian region. Anyway, let's jump to the part that concerns us today. It says the Bank of Biafra was located in Enugu until the city fell in October 1967. And then it was moved several times to different locations all over Igbo land with the seat of government. The bank's first governor was Dr. Sylvester Ugo. The legal tender produced by the institution in January 1968 was designed by Simon Okeke and other talented local artists. The first denominations were the 5 shilling and £1 notes. About a year later, the 10, 5 and £1 as well as the 10 and 5 shilling notes were issued. The currency was widely accepted in Biafra, although it was unavailable in large quantities, which quickly made it a prized possession. Despite its usefulness, it was not a recognized legal tender beyond Biafra's borders and could not be used for foreign exchange. The dilemma produced a number of challenges for the Biafran government, which we were told used private bank accounts of wealthy Biafrans to perform transactions abroad. Last week, I was here, and somebody said that the Biafran currency was spent in Gabon, in Tanzania. I just mentioned some countries in Africa. One of the problems with folks in the East is that when people tell you stuff, you never check it. The truth of the matter is that that money was not spent outside Biafra. As a matter of fact, there were people inside Biafra who did not want that money. Not just because of its limitations, but also because of its value. It wasn't based on anything of sort, or anything of value. And I'm going to read the story of one lady, I think I read it here before, Okorerie, who was caught up in the midst of all of this. And I'm also going to now read the interview of the governor of Central Bank of Biafra. His name is Sylvester Ugo. So let's by the way, I'm going to yeah, let me read the interview for you, just so you know how powerful this Central Bank of Biafra was. I think there's something good about all of this for the Igbos. For instance, they're able to create something regardless of this terrible situation. But I think in appreciating what people have done, it's better to just appreciate it for what it was than to hype it and make it bigger than what it really was, which is one of the problems I see with the way people talk about Nigeria's history. Let me read that. There was an interview that was conducted in 2021, and the man Sylvester Ugo was interviewed by, this is Vanguard. He was a Harvard-trained economist and former Minister of Science and Technology. Let me go to the part where it talks about the money. Sorry, we're talking about Central Bank. Donald Shola Ẹkáàbọ. By the way, it was in PDP after the war, joined PDP. We'll talk about all of that later. Let me just read the part that has to do with Central Bank right now. So the question was, let us go back a little. You were the governor of the Central Bank of Biafra. How did you run the economy of that obviously besieged nation for 3 years? Yet Biafra did not have the problem we are encountering now. Let me see the person who is asking the question. I will know what to say after I see the person's name. They didn't write the person's name. If you are written it now, it must be an able person. People are just dumb. Say Biafra did not have any problem that Nigerians are having now. Now you have a problem. When you can't even spend the money outside Biafra. This is the problem. This is the issue. Anyway, let's just so Biafra did not have the problem we are encountering now. Then the man responded, it was a different situation. Practically, most people in Biafra were interested in the success of the war. They were not interested in amassing wealth. So the commitment was stronger than it is today. The people were prepared to make sacrifices, which today people are not prepared to make. So the situation is different. I found it. So that person asks, what did you do practically to run that economy? Then he answers, I did not run the economy. I did not really run the economy as such. What I did was that with the withdrawal of the Nigerian currency from Biafra, we had to try to create a money system that could be used to substitute for the Nigerian pound, to facilitate buying and selling of goods and services. So my primary attention as governor of Central Bank of Biafra was really to make sure that we had enough currency to facilitate the running of the country, or the running of the economy. That was the only thing we did because we were in a war situation and could not engage in other activities that a central bank ordinarily undertakes. Were you printing currency? Of course, yes, we did. We had to create a Biafran currency. We had to print the notes and put them in circulation. That was what was used for trading once the Nigerian currency was withdrawn from circulation. I'm coming on. Then he says, what was your relationship with the Biafra head of state, Emeka Odumego Ojukwu? He says there was nothing much. He just handed over the bank to me and asked me to take care of it so that he would not have to worry himself about what was happening in that field. Even when I asked him to appoint some other members of the board to help me run the place, he said he had not complained about me running it, about my running it alone, that I should go ahead, that he didn't have any more people to give me, that everybody else was busy. He had complete confidence in me and allowed me to run the bank as I would because he felt I was doing the right thing. Only on a few occasions would he send for me if he needed some information. Otherwise, he left me to run the bank without any interference. How many people were on the board of the Central Bank of Biafra? There were only 2 of us. Even then, the other person was on the war front, so I was a one-man board, in fact. Who was the other person? The late William Uzuaga, who was a professor of business administration, University of Nigeria, Nsukka. He was in the military intelligence, so I never saw him. So that's the great Biafran CBN, CBB. There is something I've been thinking whether I should read or not. It's quite long, but it's I think it's something I'd like to take a break before I get into. I don't even have to read it. I could actually just tell you what's there. It's a perfect way to explain what happened with the Biafran currency. The truth of the matter is that when they were doing all this, the Central Bank of Biafra, they then asked people to bring in their money. But you see, the truth is, what he did by stealing government money, by stealing Nigerians' money, was what necessitated the reaction. And what if you've noticed from all the things we've been discussing, and it's still the reality of today, for Biafra, for Nigeria's, if you look at the relationship between Nigeria, different regions of Nigeria and the East, it's usually reactionary. In other words, they will do something outrageous and then people will respond to them. And one of the crazy thing is that what they do is always something that could cause pain when people respond. And sincerely, I don't think anybody's learning anything from history, especially from the Southeast. I mean, with all due respect, I don't think anybody's learning anything. Because this idea of provoking people, it's something that you see day to day, day in, day out, in the way the Southeast moves. And I think people have to really, and it used to be about politics back then. Today, it's about individuals. It's a culture now. This was all, maybe it was always a culture, Sha, but the idea, you get the point. The point really is that you would do something, you provoke a response or a reaction. The reaction then comes, and then you start crying. Nnamdi Kanu going the same route. Ojukwu went with his Biafra pound. It wasn't even Nnamdi Kanu, it was Ekpa. Ekpa was selling them shares now, currency. That when they have the Biafran nation, they will then buy it back at that time, at that point, the shares would have been essentially. I'm calling these shares because that's the only sensible thing I can call it. So you collect something like a certificate, you pay for it, and then when Biafra eventually comes, that thing will now appreciate in value. Then they will now give you money back. People were talking about this thing a few years ago. Educated people would buy that with their hard-earned money and wait for Biafra to come. When Biafra finally arrives, they will now get that thing because again, it's like crypto. So my question is it so difficult to learn from the past? Like literally the same thing that happened with Ojukwu and his people. Samanekpa is doing it with people in 2020. It was 2024, and people still were talking about buying that thing before it was caught. So Ojukwu sold Biafran pound. Ekpa is selling crypto, and people have to wake up. But that's the problem. Now, I don't even care if you like buy whatever you want to buy. But the crazy part is now blaming Nigeria for saying we brought money back to you. That's where we're going now. We brought money back to Nigeria and we expected Nigeria to give us money. So the idea would be that I had Naira, I exchanged it for Biafran pounds, and then I had Naira, I exchanged it for Biafran pounds. After the war, I will now bring the Biafran pounds to Nigeria and give it to Nigeria to give me the new currency, Naira. Based on what? Biafran currency there's nothing backing it. It was not recognized outside that territory. So how exactly am I supposed to? So what's the value that the government should give me for every Biafran pound? Is it 1 to 1? Is it 1 to 20? Is it 1 to 100? What's the value of the Biafran pounds? The answer is 0. That paper was not worth the ink that they used to print on it. So when people cry and say, oh, the federal government did something to me, I'm like, do you really understand how this thing actually worked? Oh, they collected our money and did not give us money back, and they gave us 20 pounds. We're going to talk about that 20 pounds much later. But the point is, people should be grateful to Papa and to Go On for whatever it is that they got. The currency issue did not happen because Nigeria hated the Igbos. It happened because the Igbos gave the money to someone. And there's somebody, by the way, I have an account of somebody who refused to give our own money to Biafra. Let me read that account. It was an interview that was conducted in 2020. CNN interview, actually. 1 second. For every Biafran pound, people should have been given 20 lashes. Bro. Where is this thing? 1 second, I'll find it in a bit. Shoot. Kilo Sheve. Her name is I think it's Evelyn Okororie. Ball. I think if there's anything Ojukwu has accomplished that I respect him for, is he has found a way to make sure that nobody blamed him or blames him for anything he did. That's not a mean feat. That's something that requires respect. So this woman, her name is Okororie. Okay? And she says here, What was said about her that Okorire said she sold food and other household items during the war in exchange for Nigerian pounds, which she then used to buy cigarettes, potash, salt, and marijuana, since Biafran currency was not recognized beyond its borders. You've seen it in two places now, in this interview and also in there was a country by Chinachebe. That currency was not used outside Biafra. All those Gabon things are lie. It's just how people say things to make themselves happy, just to stop themselves from crying. But it wasn't used outside. So she will buy it for Nigerian pounds. Sorry, she will sell. When she's buying those things, she has to pay Nigerian pounds. But then, because of course they're not going to collect Biafran currency from her, she sold her items to both residents and Biafran soldiers. I was bringing salt to Oguta, she recalled, and selling weed. The civil war in Oguta and other areas in Biafra was life-changing. After it ended, markets, schools, homes, lives were devastated by bombs and bullets, and they had to be rebuilt. Okorire, this is where I'm going. Okorire wasn't affected by the monetary policy, as she had taken out all her money from the bank at the start of the war, and thus had Nigerian pounds to convert to the new Nigerian currency, the Naira. So what you see from this is this. She, for instance, did not take her money and gave it to Ojukwu and collected Biafran pounds. She withdrew her money from the bank and kept it. And then when it was time for the money to be changed or converted to Nigerian Naira, she had Nigerian pounds to convert to Naira. This woman is not the only one, by the way. And there are two things I want to say here. First is that those who took their money and gave it in exchange for Biafran pounds have no right to be criticizing Nigeria's government for not giving them any money back. Like, you didn't give me money in the first place. I didn't collect your money, so why should I give it back to you? Number two, there were some people who actually put their money in the bank, in Nigerian banks. Those ones got their money back. It is not fair to always do this thing of they collected our money, they didn't give us our money back. The truth is that those who, if for instance the banks, the what's it called? We're going to talk more about this. I'm already getting tired. We'll talk more about this tomorrow. If the bank was burnt down or destroyed during the war, then you don't have anything to show. But two things you should even ask yourself. Number one, how many people even had bank accounts back then? Then number two, those who had bank accounts and nothing happened to their spaces, were they able to get their money back? And the answer is yes, they were able to get their money back, a lot of them. And I played the video of one of them the other day. That man was a head of Ohaneze Ndigbo. His name is John Owodo. And if you give me a second, I think I'll just play his video. That will even help me, take a break. Let me play you what he had to say. 1 second. Where is this thing? You know what? Let me play from. I think I saved it somewhere on Telegram. I've played it here before, by the way. Igbo people will never accept this fact that 20 pounds propaganda na baraku. Yes, we'll get to that 20 pounds. We'll get 20 pounds very soon. So even the 20 pounds was a gift. Nobody owed anybody any money in this country. And the crazy part is that those who should be grateful and say, you didn't have to do it, but you did. Thank you. They're the ones telling you that, we have to start all over again, as if anybody collected. And I'm sorry, this may sound like, compassion. It's not about compassion. It's about blackmail. People are blackmailing us with lies. What that requires is not compassion. What it needs, it's truth. You confront lies with truth. This compassion, Nigeria is Just imagine Murtala was president in 67. If Murtala was president in 67, there would be no Nigeria again. No. That's much I can assure you, because at 66, he wanted to break up the whole country. I'll bring people up very shortly. Maybe we'll just have conversations. Maybe because we didn't really have a lot of people coming up today. So let's play the stuff by John Owodo. I think this should help the conversation. And his name is John Nia Owodo. Okay? Please take a listen.
To him that he had, but that £6,000 that was left in the money, my father discovered it 6 months after the war, when the manager of Barclays Bank then, which is now Union Bank, called him and revealed to him that he had £6,000 plus interest, which were not tampered with during the course of the war. My dad then decided to buy a Mercedes lorry bus. That time in the southeast, all the vehicles that were there had been used during the war, and many had been cannibalized, and the few that survived were smoking or hardly in any good condition to traverse state territories. There was no farming throughout the war, and a lot of people who were compressed in few communities where the war did not reach did not have enough food cultivated in those communities to sustain them. So all the food that were coming to the east were brought from the west and the north, principally from the north.
So that's John Nyanwodo. His father had money saved. So that's John Nyanwodo. His father had money saved in Barclays Bank. 6 months after the war, the bank reached out to his father, say, listen, you have £6,000 here, and you also have interest. He got his money back. If there's anything people from the South should do for themselves, is to talk about things that really matter, instead of all this, blackmail. It's not going to work again. It's not going to work. Someone says the Igbo people will never accept it. They shouldn't. See, whether they do or not, the point is that it's not going to work on. Let me tell you what I really want. Even if they say they are not going to, they don't care about the truth, it's okay. The important thing is that people here should know what happened, so that when they come with the lies, you have something to say. Mba. 1 second. There's something I want to read to you guys. Let me see if I can quickly find it. If I don't get it today, then we'll get into it tomorrow. Mama say, me. Okay, I found it. I'll read part of it. We'll dwell on it tomorrow. Please let me change the audio source for a second, please. Hold on, please. Okay. Now, one of the funny things I see happening on Twitter is that people will see the video, then they will say, oh, are you from the South? Why are you speaking about South issues? Yes, Yoruba people are, but not one person could say you're wrong. This is what happened. Let me correct what you're saying. No. All they do is that you're Yoruba, you shouldn't talk. Do you now have all the announces that the new Nigerian notes would replace the current notes in circulation between 3rd January and 22nd January 1968? In July, for the Midwest and West, after the invasion of the Midwest and the incursion into Ore. So here goes. January 28, 1968, Biafran's own currency, the Biafran pound, requiring its citizens to exchange Biafran pounds for requiring its citizens to exchange Nigerian pounds for Biafran pounds immediately. Naturally, the Nigerian banned use of Biafran currency everywhere on Nigerian soil, as well as old Nigerian currency after January 1968. On this issue of exchanging Biafran money for Nigerian currency to the tune of 20 Nigerian pounds and no more, I have previously established in discussions here that returning Biafrans, either as Biafran land was progressively liberated or after the war, who had bank or savings accounts left behind and unoperated in Nigeria and could prove ownership, got their full equivalent of Nigerian money back. So what the government did basically was that Nigerian pound, the equivalent in naira, and then you got the money back in full. Biafrans who had old Nigerian currency that had been changed in, so that example is that John Nwodo's father. That would be an example of that. Biafrans who had old Nigerian currency that had been changed in January 1968 and got stuck with them got nothing, just as other Nigerians too got nothing. So if you had the money, just like now, when they were changing currency, I think it was in 91. If you don't have the old currency, 1 second, please. One second. All right. So it says, so like in 91, when money was being exchanged, if you don't take the money to the bank at the time, what if go in here? Okay, these are the consequences of war. Then Biafrans who either commingled Nigerian and Biafran currency in their bank accounts operated within Biafra, and those who had only Biafran currency and wanted to exchange them got a flat rate of 20 pounds, no matter the volume of the Biafran dollar that they had. This was contrary. Please, let's power tap. I'm seeing this thing here. By the way, I have to quickly change the power source. But please power tap on Twitter. Sorry, on TikTok. Give me a second, please. Let me just change this power source. 1 second. Categories of people and how they got their money back. Okay, let's go through the whole thing very quickly. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Let's just go through the whole thing. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Akin. Thank you. So let's just go through the whole thing very quickly. December 30, 1967 was when Awolowo announced that the new Nigerian notes would replace the current notes, and in circulation between 3rd January and 22nd January 1968. By 28th January 1968, Biafra decided to have their own currency as well. Of course, Nigeria would not accept Biafran notes. When the war was over, those who returned, whether they returned, as their spaces, because let me explain. It is not every Igbo who waited till 1970 to rejoin Nigeria. As the places were quote-unquote liberated, as Biafra was falling, the cities were coming back into Nigeria. So it wasn't like everybody had to wait in 1970. Some people got liberated in 68, some people in 69, and then of course some people at the end of the war. So as they were getting liberated, those who had money in the bank accounts were able to access it. So let's go into this now. Returnee Biafrans, either as Biafran land was progressively liberated or after the war, who had bank or savings accounts left behind and unoperated in Nigeria. So the savings account is unoperated, but it's in Nigeria. And if they could prove ownership, they got their full equivalent of Nigerian money back. In other words, their money was in the bank before they left Nigeria. And let me also say something that I think is important. These Nigerian banks also had branches inside Biafra. So if, for instance, you have money in Barclays and you were in Lagos, you could still move your money. Maybe, let's say you carry your money and then you go to Barclays Bank and you put it there. And you'll be like that woman, that Okororie woman. If, for instance, that money you withdrew from your bank account, if you're able to exchange it as the place was being liberated, let's say you're able to make the date, you still get your money back. But generally speaking, every single person who had money in their bank account got their money back. They got the Naira equivalent after the war. But the question is this: a lot of people that are always shouting, "My father lost money." Most of these people, no, let me not say it that way. I don't want to be insensitive, but it's important to ask questions. How many people actually had bank accounts? How many people had bank accounts? And those who had got their money back. Example is the John Nwodo that we played earlier. Number two, Biafrans who had old Nigerian currency that had been changed in January 68 and got stuck with them got nothing, just as other Nigerians too got nothing. So for instance, the woman we read about earlier, Okororie, she had Nigerian money, Nigerian pound. She withdrew it and held the cash. When the money was being changed, she changed it to Naira. If you have Nigerian cash, but you could not change it during the period that Nigeria was changing money, then you got nothing. And let me quickly say something. It's going to sound like, but that's very painful. What about those who had money? Do you know that this thing also affected the military? If you read this book, Tragedy of Victory, this thing actually affected Benjamin Adekunle's work at the war front, because they were still spending the old currency and they had to send money back to their family members, and what they were now giving was a new, like everything was mixed up. In fact, let me just read that part, because the reason I want to read this is because I thought about it like, but some people will have issues without to move around and stuff. Now, like, even our own people, it affected them. Let me read this to you. It says here, the currency change also affected Adekunle as much as it affected Biafra. Adekunle flew into Port Harcourt from Jos in June 1968 and had a quarrel with some Navy and Nigerian Air Force officers. He sent for me to brief me on his concerns. Nigerian currency had been changed in Lagos between January 3rd to January 22nd, 1968, which also was still legal tender in the war zones. Only allegedly found its way into Calabar area through some of these men. Adekunle was not a crook and was not going to allow this to happen, and he was hated for that. I also believe that apart from his war front problems, the currency issue compounded his problems. Whoever it was who in Lagos and those interested in the old banknotes looked for a way to get him, they finally succeeded. Because of one problem or the other, Adekunle was changed as the commander of the 3MCDO. What he's saying basically is that how do I explain this thing? The fact that that change of currency affected Biafra doesn't mean that Nigerians who were in the war zone, especially the soldiers, were not affected by it either. Because some of them had to send money back home, some of them had to spend money. What are you going to spend? So let's say, for instance, in the war zone, the naira, the people are already used to having naira, but now you have a new currency. Like, the details are a bit lost on me, but then the idea basically is that it affected the way they also conducted their own economic activities in the war zones. And according to this man, who was his second in command to Adekunle, he feels that that's one of the reasons why Adekunle had problems with the government at the time. Let's go back to the stuff we're reading from Mobolaji Aluko. So he says, returning Biafrans who had, an operated bank account got their money back, full equivalent. Biafrans who had owed Nigerian currency that had been changed in the 68, they got stuck with them, got nothing. This is the third part. This is the one that makes people cry. Biafrans who either commingled Nigerian and Biafran currency in their bank accounts, operated within Biafra. I said earlier that, the same way we have Barclays in Lagos or Ibadan, there's also Barclays in Enugu. So if, for instance, you go to Enugu and you want to have Biafran currency and Nigerian currency, or you have Biafran currency within Biafra, and you now come back to Nigeria, they got a flat rate of £20, no matter the volume of Biafran dollar that they had. This was contrary to a rife rumor that the exchange rate of Biafran pound to new Nigerian pound would be 20 Biafran pounds to the Nigerian pound. This was part of the profound disappointment, rumor versus reality. So when they were coming with their money to Nigeria, they were expecting that if I give Nigeria 20 Biafran pounds, I'll get 1 Nigerian pound. But the question is that, how? Like, what's the basis of that? And Papa said something in that interview of 1983. He said if he had done that, Nigeria would have gone into bankruptcy. Because, okay, so who's to tell me what the original Biafran currency is, or the fake one? And who's to tell us the value of that currency? So if I take the Biafran currency and I give you Naira, what am I going to use it to do? Because I've just purchased something. What am I going to use what I've bought from you? What am I going to use it to do? And when this thing happened in the US during their own civil war, how did the North treat the South? We're going to get to this in this conversation. Furthermore, it is estimated that a total 198.5 million 198.5 million pounds Biafran currency was printed in 2 series, of which 115 million to 140 million pounds were in circulation by the end of the conflict, which with a population of 14 million was approximately £10 per person. The banknotes of Biafra, there's a book, you know what, I'm going to, I'll see, Sha. Let me see if it's something that, no, there's one, okay. There's a book I think we're going to read tomorrow. I'm going to read that tomorrow, not today. All right, so at the end of the war, what was in circulation was between 115 million pounds, Biafran pounds, and 140 million Biafran pounds. Now, the total population of the people then was about 14 million. That's, when we say people, we're saying everybody. At the beginning of the war, it was around 12.4 thereabouts. So by 1970, about 40 million from Biafra, from southeast, from south, the parts that were part of Biafra, everybody together was 40 million. So if you now break that by 140 million pounds, that would be 10 pounds to one person. So in actual fact, 20 pounds was actually, but let's continue. These did not include an unknowable amount of counterfeit currency. That's what I was saying earlier, that how do you know which one is fake and which one is the real currency? Let's continue. According to Awolowo, it cost approximately 230.8 million pounds in local currency and 70.8 million pounds in foreign currency to prosecute the Nigerian Civil War between 1967 and 1970. In 1970, the end of war year, Nigeria's oil revenue was 97.3 million pounds. Total federally collected revenue was 370.5 million pounds. Federal government retained revenue was 262.4 million pounds. Total budget expenditure was 528.2 million pounds, and therefore budget deficit was 265.8 million pounds. There's a document called Nigerian Budgeting Process and the Magnitude of Budget Variance. Anyway, the point is that it's just giving us the breakdown of what they had to deal with at the time. So they spent about 230 million local currency and 70.8 million pounds in foreign currency for the war. But all they got in 1970 was 97.3 from oil. When you put together everything that Nigeria made in 1970 was 370.5. But what they spent that year was 528.2 million pounds. So which means that Nigeria had a deficit. The question is that even for the 2020 pounds that they gave everybody, Nigeria still had deficit. So what would have happened if Nigeria now said that, you know what, you have 140 million pounds, let's take it and just give you money back? That means you're going to have burden to Nigerian government or Nigerian economy because of your own folly. You don't know what was happening to you when we were fighting a war. There's another problem I see with this Nigeria thing. I think people hate the idea of consequences. You can be stupid, you can insult anybody, you can fight, you can start wala, but no, there must be no consequences. And then once there are consequences, then people hate you. That must be a joke. Let me read something to you about what happened in America. So the American Civil War was between April 12, 1861 and May 9, 1865. Let's just look at how they dealt with the whole currency issue after, the Unionists defeated the secessionists, the Confederates. In April 1861, in one of the very first few acts of defiance, the secessionist Southern Confederates issued currency, the Confederate States of America dollar, colloquially called graybacks, in opposition to the greenback dollar of the Federal Union. They were really promissory notes, not backed by hard assets, to be redeemed in the event that the Confederates won the war. Think of Ẹkáàbọ and his crypto. Confederate treasure notes or banknotes were ultimately issued in 50 cents, £1, $1, $2, $5, $10, $20, $50, $100, $500, and $1,000 denominations with a variety of designs, issuers, and redeemable obligations. The amount of currency issued under the various acts of the Confederate Congress totaled $1.7 billion. Bills were released in 17 different note types in 7 series from 1861 through 1864. Since there were many types of Confederate notes as well as notes issued by the states of the Confederacy, and since banks could issue their own notes, counterfeiting was a major problem for the Confederacy. Many of these contemporary counterfeits are identifiable today, and they can be as valuable to a collector as a real note. Confederate dollars and coins are regarded as a cherished part of American history and remain the subject of a lively trade with careful grading. Let's go to the things I really want to get into. The Confederates lost, and the currency became worthless at the end of the war, made legally so. That is, worthless by the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, whose Section 3 banned any federal or state office for Confederate officials or supporters, and in Section 4 permanently banned the recognition of Confederate debts or currency. Why did Nigerians not do this? Anyway, let me read the 2 sections. So this is Section 3 and Section 4 of the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution of 1868. It says, no person shall be a senator or representative, Section 3 first, no person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president or vice president or any other, or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any states, who having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or as a member of any state legislature. or as an executive or judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution of the United States shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. But Congress may, by a vote of 2/3 of each, remove such disability. Why did Nigeria not have this? Why did Ojukwu have the audacity to come back to Nigeria to try to become a senator in 1983? This church mind is actually, there's no firmness. There should be mercy, but there should be firmness. There should be justice. Justice would be that Ojukwu would never be able to even think of getting involved in politics, unless, of course, the government. You know what I think you should have? Unless, of course, the government now says that, let's remove this thing just for, to pardon him. Not that it's just pardon to move and work everywhere like a regular citizen. No. There should be consequences. Because there are no consequences, that's why you have EPA. That's why you have Nwazurike. That's why you have Kano. That's why you keep having people, because there's no consequence for bad behavior. Anybody can just wake up tomorrow now and start his own. If Ojukwu did this in 67 to 70, I was like, that was so bad. How come EPA was able to do the exact same thing recently by saying people should come and buy crypto? They'll collect the money when they have their own Biafra country with 40 states. 40 states. And just to be stealing people's land. These ones, they said, listen, if you have been part of insurrection or secession, you cannot hold any office in the US. Unless, of course, by two-thirds of each house, by a vote of 2/3 of each house, they might now remove the disability. But at least there's a law that you cannot. Then they cannot decide that on person-by-person basis, may remove them, may not remove them. It could be like a sex offender. Can get your pardon, but there's a law for everybody. Then individual cases, you can now decide, okay, maybe we should remove this one, maybe we should allow this person to go, let's do this on that person. But everybody just feels that they can do anything. And when we get to how Nigeria rebuilt Biafra, you're going to see all those things about no victor, no vanquished. The one did it from his quote-unquote church mind, like say, we're all brothers. But in reality, people didn't get the message. My sister, it is where Jerry. Oh, we're almost done. Tomorrow, I'll make sure the shirt is darker. It doesn't have this kind of pattern. If it does, it will be darker. Where were we? Second thing, section 4 of the 14th Amendment. It says, the validity of the public debt of the United States authorized by law, including debts incurred for payment of pensions and bounties for services in suppressing insurrection or rebellion, shall not be questioned. But neither the United States nor any state shall assume or pay any debt or obligation incurred in aid of insurrection or rebellion against the United States, or any claim for the loss or emancipation of any slave, but all such debts, obligations, and claims shall be held illegal and void. Why should Nigeria be bearing the burden of your stupidity? By the way, when we say Nigeria bears people's burden, Nigeria bears people's burden, we have to remember that the Nigeria we're talking about here we're talking about the people who. In other words, I begged you, I sent leaders to you, I traveled all the way, don't fight this war, I did everything to stop you, I felt, I owed you that much, you disrespected me, you start the war, you get in trouble, you come back, and then you tell me to pay for your mess up. How? It'll be like that, then they do more. And then if I don't pay for that mess up, then I am the one who's a bigot. No, it means you don't like the idea of responsibility. I'd like to stop here for now, but we're saying that what happened in the US should have given us an idea of how to, that's something for about history. This happened in 1868. Our one happened in 1970. That's about 100 years, right? About 100 years, we could have learned from that. And today, Do you see anybody in America crying and saying, "Oh, Confederate dollar, or you did not share, you did not refund"? Nobody talks about that now because it was dealt with decisively. And even Nigeria, where they said give them £20, may not be like, say, by the way, that's not the only money people got. To get into that, maybe tomorrow. They got a lot of money from the federal government, but even the one that was given is made to look as if Nigeria owed them and Nigeria has cheated people. That's not unfair to Nigerians. That's unfair to Nigerians. Holori. Even the one that was done like come on, be pay efebelati lepepe egba. Wọ́n á tún bú yín pé nǹkan fún àwọn ọ̀tọ̀. Ṣé mo jẹ́ lówó tẹ́lẹ̀ ni? In other words, what I'm giving to you is an act of goodwill. I don't owe you a dime. You're supposed to be grateful for the gift, not complain that it's not enough. And that's why you notice you have these stories in Yoruba land. If someone, for instance, gives you money and you say it's not enough, they tell you bring it back now. Just bring it back. Like you don't need it, bring it back. When we come tomorrow, I'm going to go deeper into the £20 stuff and also into the I'm trying not to get into the starvation tomorrow. Yeah, but we might get into that starvation thing because that one is actually very exciting. It's exciting, but I don't want to start with it because it's exciting, but it's also and by the way, the revenue that, let me also quickly say something. I'll explain better tomorrow. The revenue that, the money, when they paid these people £20, that money was coming from somewhere. The money came from different sources. One was oil. Then you had the revenue from cash crops that people were exporting, right? Agricultural exports. Then you had taxes. At the time in Nigeria, the region that was paying the most as far as taxes were concerned was the West. So this money that they gave to people, it wasn't like it dropped from heaven. They didn't just print it and distributed it. It came from some people's sweat. And they did it because we're all one Nigeria. Let's just come together. But then years later, their children are now looking back and saying, your parents owe me something and they should have given me more. No. You should be thankful for what you got. All right. So I'm going to stop here for now. Tomorrow we're going to get deeper into £20 policy and also get into the salvation thing. We'll round up with what Nigeria did to rebuild the Southeast, and then we'll change topic once we're done. We may not finish everything tomorrow. It might take maybe 1 or 2 days, and then we'll move on from there to other topics. I hope you've learned more about Nigeria's history. We've gone through many books, just trying to establish how Papa got involved in the old stuff. Like I said to read much of it today. Sorry, much of this part of our sessions because it makes it a bit more credible, even though it will be credible even if I said it. But for those who find it very difficult to believe anything, at least they will say books. But I know that even with the books, they still say the books are from this. And that's why if you also notice, I read from different spaces. There are Igbo books and Northern books today. I read Igbo books, I read Northern books, I read Yoruba books, and I've read British books and even American books. Even today alone, I read like maybe about 7 to 10 books today. So I hope, but it's not about reading many books, it's about understanding how Papa got in there and the fact that he wasn't even going to do anything as far as siding anybody until Ojuku Tono Wonu Western region. At that point, all gloves are off, all gloves were off. And that's how we should behave today. Everybody live and let live, but once you come close to my land, you are collecting. And if you cry later, that's your business. And all of us can, God bless everybody, God bless Nigeria. But I have the right to protect my ancestral space. Thank you very much for listening. We're going to bring some people up to have a conversation, and then we'll close the session for today. We'll be back tomorrow at 1 p.m. Ife time, West African time. The list, I can only be saying it. I'm going to be talking right now. I just think of a book, and I just mentioned the book. But if you want the list, I can say it now. So if you want, you can maybe take it down. The list of the books that I've used today. Where do I start? The Nigerian Civil War by John de St. John. Thank you, Ron Kenimbe. The Nigerian Civil War by John de St. John. Crisis and Conflicts in Nigeria. Crisis and Conflicts in Nigeria by A.H.M. Kirk Green. Tragedy of Victory by Godwin Alabi Sama. You know what? I'm going to say it now. Then you can listen to this part again and you can take it. It's going to be on YouTube. So let me just take it one by one. The Nigerian Civil War by John de St. John. Crisis and Conflicts in Nigeria, Volume 2 by A.H.M. Kirk Green. The Tragedy of Victory by Godwin Alabi Sama. You Must Set Forth at Dawn by Wole Soyinka. Just Before Dawn by Colonel Motoshaw. Colonel Victor Banjo, Revolutionary Betrayed by Nia Borishade. A Break in the Silence by F. Adetong Ogunsheye. There Was a Country by Chinua Achebe. That's 8. Awolowo, The Political Moses by Oduguwa. And I think that's about it. That's 9, right? And Go 1, The Biography of a Soldier Statesman by J. Isawa Elaigo. And My Command by Olusegun Obasanjo. That's 11. I think that's how much I can remember. And then, of course, we had other interviews. So the interview with Papa, I put it in the Telegram channel, so you can take advantage of that. That's Papa's interview in 1983. I'll put that in there. Is there another thing? Yeah, that's about it. If you want to get some of those books, you can get on Redomi Books on Telegram. Right? You can just join and browse through. There are different categories. There's political science and history. There is biographies. There is some of my other books, and some of those stuff. I'm going to put some of my own books there as well, but not political. Yeah. African writer series and stuff like that. So please take advantage of that. So let's have some people come up and then we'll begin to wrap up today. So I hope we got all the names. ONB, and we can always call that part out because I will not be able to be typing it as I'm here but at least I've said everything. Babangida's book has some interesting things in it though. It's just that Babangida was just being quintessential Babangida. It doesn't. So, Babangida. So he was playing everybody, right? He played everybody, and that's essentially what he did with his book. It was thank you. That's what I'm looking for. Type politics, Maradona. But that's not to say that there's nothing true in his book. There's some interesting stuff in that book, Journey in Service. Let me tell you one of the things about reading. If you can, please mute. If you can read other stuff, then you'll be able to spot BS when you see it. For instance, is there BS in that book? Yes. But the way we even present this BSF, buying. But if you've studied other stuff, then you can tell. Because I won't lie to you, there's some things I did not know that I found in that book. And that's why I'm very careful with books. When people say, oh, nonsense, I don't believe in the person's ideology. But we may find something there that will help, stuff. So, yeah. But thank you very much for being here. Let's listen we have 2 people up here. Please, because it's almost 7 o'clock, in the next 1 minute, if nobody else requests, we'll just take these 2 and then we'll call it a day. Please don't let it be that once they start speaking, you now get inspiration to speak. Please, No, we've been here since 1. We'll be here again tomorrow at 1 p.m. Ife time, West African time, and then we'll continue from there. It will not add up or make sense. The writer is lying. But how will you know if you have not read that stuff? Yeah. But you have sent you. Okay. So let's have Oye.
Hello, Busuye, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. see, first of all, I really have to thank you for all what you have been doing.
Thank you, sir.
I've been part of this program, though I'm always in the comment section. But honestly, the way I appreciate what you are doing, I still don't know what to do. I think I will still have to contribute positively, not now, but definitely later. I really thank you from the bottom of my heart. There are two things I want to comment today. You see, the Gowon that everybody has been praising, I'm not praising Gowon. Most of the problem we have today is caused by Gowon. After the Civil War, if Gowon have taken the right decision to publicly execute all the main culprits in the war, no, that is what is normally done with every rebellion. If you go and look at all the rebellion all over the world, after the war, the main culprits are always publicly executed. And there will be no poem about it. That is war for you. That is justice. They put the life of about 3 million people in jeopardy. They killed a lot of people by that war. Despite all the warning before they start that, look, don't do this war, don't fight this war, they still went ahead. I don't know why you yourself, you are alarmed. The best thing one should have done immediately after the war is all the main culprits, including the propagandists who sell all the history to the children today, all of them should have been publicly executed. Let me tell you one thing. If Gowon have taken that step, all what we are experiencing today, Biafra here, Biafra in Finland, it will have automatically stopped. It will not happen. I'm telling you the truth. It will not. By that welcome that Gowon gave them, that at any time they can still rise up and do it again. But if Gowon have taken that part that is normally done after every rebellion, I'm telling you, this problem will have been buried once and for all. It will not happen again. All this call for Biafra in this way, we are protected. No, it will have stopped permanently. That is number one. Number two, I don't know, Busui, whether you can digress a little bit and let our Gen Z Jews know something about the Abiola period. I mean, the Abiola, the after effect of the election, the participation of the Igbos after the Abiola something. Our Gen Z youth don't know anything. This history we are talking now may be a bit far away from them, but from that Abiola, I want our Gen Z youth to know more about it. What happened to Abiola, how the Yoruba struggle, how the Igbos go all about to make sure they sabotage all Yoruba's effort. That one is very, 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 very important. Please, I don't know if you can digress a bit and try to educate our Gen Z youth about this. Probably some of them will be liberated because so many of them have been gaslighted now. They don't even know. They don't know. So please, that is my submission. And once again, I thank you for what you are doing. You know, I really appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Once we're done with this thing, Mambo, once we can do it after this series, and then we'll do that, and then we'll go back. Yeah, we can do it. MK, all right. I'm gonna call it Neil so that I'll remember. So, Esheon, thank you very much for the kind words, and thank you for that submission. Let's go to the next person. Rural area. Evening, sir. Hello, rural area. Are you there? Sure, I'm there. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much for your good work. Last week, Friday, when you were reading about Graham Douglas, right? You read about Graham men in Ojuku's advisors, I think, right? I think in 19 68. I think it was, I'm trying to remember the date, that the federal forces took Port Harcourt, and some of the people of River State were able to regain back they came into the creek, now they regain back their towns, you know. Then Graham Douglas, he was a very prominent man from Calabari,